Good evening, everyone. Welcome back then to another LFM stream here for round number 9 of the Case King Pro Series in Season 15. That is right, the final quarter of the championship. We are closing in on that fate, and what a championship it has been so far. 8 rounds, and in those 8 rounds, we have had 8 different winners. You could not write the way that this has been playing out, but there have been certain factors that maybe are familiar with the way that things have gone over the course of this season so far. The likes of George Boothby, once again, being a firmly sorted championship contender. Had a bit of a ropey start in the early phases of the season, but he had very much continued to keep himself up there in consistency, and with that has a 160-point lead over his nearest competitor, Nicholas Hoban. The only thing that's a little bit unusual about that situation is that Boothby, the winningest driver in Pro Series history, hasn't had a win to his tally as of yet. Out of those 8 different winners so far this season, somehow he is not one of them. Number one man will be looking to try to see if he can change that this evening as beautifully presented in the grass. The circuit Ricardo, Tormo, we are at Valencia, as per your votes from last week. I must admit, I was slightly miffed and offended. I would have loved to have headed to Brands Hatch, but I suppose the sunny side of Spain will be a good host nonetheless for 90 minutes of action-packed goodness for this one. And it's going to be a beautiful evening of racing indeed. It's a very, very fast, tricky, and technical circuit blasting around here. And my goodness, it is going to be furious with these GT cars. There's a lot of tricky parts of this middle sector where these guys will be looking to go side by side. It encourages overtaking. And then in the fast-flying corners, the likes of Turn 1, heavy braking zones into 2, and also even the likes of Turn 12, 13 to 14. A tricky series of corners where these guys are going to have to be on the top of their game in order to keep their GT3 cars planted and secure to the tarmac as they will battle it out for the top positions. We'll be getting underway for the practice session very, very shortly. And I was under the impression this was also regarded as Valencia. Well, apologies on that front. I'll make a change to the name of the stream there. My apologies. I take a step. Look, Mr. Commentator has had a long day and is trying his best. And look, perhaps it's maybe subconsciously out of spite for the fact we're not at Brands Hatch. If we'd gone to Brands Hatch, I would have known where we were going. Everything would have been fine. But we are at this incredible circuit, and it is going to be so good, I have no doubt. Because especially with the nature of all of these corners as well, it is going to be a bit of a tricky one in terms of tyre wear, and we know how often that can start to play effect as it burns up the rubber. With just those extra 30 minutes, that can be pivotal in terms of the way that these races end up playing out. So it's going to be very interesting to see how our drivers get on tonight. Of course, they are in their few moments of practice before we get underway for the qualifying session. As I'm loading in, I am seeing Valencia mentioned in the name, so I feel like I'm at least slightly less mad than I thought I was about 15 seconds ago. But these final moments of practice, we so often talk about how you end up going about trying to dial in the car. Do you look to get everything sorted and ready and underway for qualifying, or do you look to try to get that race pace into a really good place? Now, 90 minutes of action this evening, that does start to maybe change things up just a little bit in terms of how those bits of preparation start to go, because track position in qualifying is going to be a little bit less relevant than it otherwise would be at some of the circuits. But with the way that these races can sometimes go and all the tricky twists and turns that they can throw, it's very, very difficult to place as to where you actually need to be starting in a field like this. The margins are so small, so close between everybody, and even slight changes in position, depending on how calm everyone is in the opening couple of laps, can have a very big set of consequences in terms of the race and championship situation. I have to see how everybody gets on this evening, and I'd be interested to get your bets as well. Do we think we're going to have our first repeat winner of the championship this evening, or do we think it's going to be a 9th different winner in a row? I must admit, in a way, I'm kind of wanting to keep the streak going. I think it's so fantastic when you go into each race not really knowing who is going to come out on top. Of course, you have your main protagonist, your it's your staples to the pointy end of the grid. But with the BOP in effect, these tricky circuits often is not quite as straightforward as you would otherwise think it may be heading into these sessions. So it's always such a fantastic bit of action. As, of course, last week it was Timo Carpenter, Mr. Carpet, in his big, bad, or wonderful Boatley, which, as we shall make our way over to the session now, we can see is now kitted out with those glorious Visceral Esports colours, as he has made his way to that team. And that Bentley at Paul Ricard was an absolute rocket ship down the back straight. Perhaps just a little bit underbopped in the grand scheme of things, but you still have to be able to drive the wheels off things to pull out a margin in the way that Timo Carpenter did to secure just, I think, what was only his second win? I think Kylo is probably the best place to remind me on that front. But certainly an incredible one from the Finnish driver. And I have to see. We've got already votes in the chat. So we've got George Boothby looking to maybe be the 9th different winner of the season. Either that or Mr. Carpet potentially return to the top step of the podium. I'm not sure this Bentley is quite going to suit these medium and medium speed and long turns around here at Valencia in quite the same way it did at Paul Ricard. And Timo Carpenter, he certainly had a good few goes at trying to get the next win on his tally, didn't he? It's been a while since that incredible victory at Mount Panorama several seasons ago now. And it's been a while for this man, but he brought it all together, learned from the mistakes earlier on in the season, and he delivered an incredible result in fantastic style. I have to see where he can position himself up the order this evening. But as of right now, looking extremely quick, that it looks like these BMWs could be pretty handy around here tonight. Amir Al-Fati in the number 20 car, looking very speedy indeed, ahead of George Boothby, the number 1 man in the server, and trying to get himself to P1 in tonight's race for the first time this season, and of course for the championship that has just eluded him time and time again. So often up there with the very best, having incredible performances across the season, but just hasn't always been able to string together results in the final few critical races, or has run out of time to try to bounce back from either absences or no shows, all sorts. The world of the Case King Pro Series, as we are very much familiar with and was demonstrated at Paul Ricard, is a crazy, topsy-turvy, wonderful place. I cannot wait to see how things go. Also, big thank you to all of those that followed. We have got 3,888 of you here on the English Twitch channel now. It'd be wonderful to see if we can maybe get to 3,900 by the end of this evening. Can we even get to 4,000 followers on the channel before the season ends? That is the task and challenge I put to you. But thank you, everybody, so much for all of the incredible support, both here and on the YouTube channel, catching up with all of these mega races that we have had across the season. And be great to see how people get on this evening. We have got our main protagonist at the pointy end of the field in the server tonight. We have the likes of George Boothby, Nicholas Huben as well, who has won a race so far, but over the last couple of weeks has had some moments which don't quite scream of the consistency that we've seen from him in previous title challenges. Remember, a few seasons ago, it was actually the shoe was on the other foot for Nicholas Huben. He was actually winless all the way down to the finale, went down to the wire at Monza, and very nearly took the title, but didn't quite manage to overcome the horde of Veloce drivers that's we're against him. Although this is an interesting start. Look at this. We have some damp conditions to be playing with. And Hayden Walsingham has Hayden Walsingham just immediately decided to bail out. And it looks like these conditions, I imagine surely these will go to dry though, because we haven't got rain falling across the session. So unfortunately, in this 15 minutes, it's maybe not going to be the most dynamic of sessions, but it is certainly going to be an interesting one, because it could be the case that your very final lap, or the very final lap in the server, may be the one that takes pole position, because this track evolution, as the circuit looks to dry out, it's not roasting hot, the wind isn't fantastically high either. This rain is probably going to stagnate just a little bit for a while. I'm not sure that we'll be at optimal conditions by the end of this session. So it could be an interesting one. There's also a little bit of a warning for the drivers. Well, I say a warning. It depends which car you are on, potentially in. excuse me, because there are going to be certain cars that will be looking at the prospect of rain and saying, thank you very much, please send it all in those 90 minutes. Cars like the Ferrari especially do love some changeable conditions as well, so keep an eye on Grant Correcas if we do face that around here. Of course, this car has won previously here, I believe, in the hands of Omashima, if I remember rightly, just a few seasons ago. Around this circuit, so be very interesting to see how they all get on. Number 13 car is going to be the first car to lead us away, and there will be Valentin Barrier in the McLaren 720S Evo. The Veloce driver making his way then on down towards turn 1 for the very first time as these laps start to come on in. Being careful with the white line, especially in these damp conditions and the curves. You will start to understeer very, very quickly. And the TC0 measure, as Mr. Carpet knows very well, these cars can start to get loose more easily than you might think. You see the Frenchman battling through the apex of turn 2 in towards turn 3, flat through there, but it does come with a handful of corrections as he sets himself up into 4, using all the AstroTurf to open up the corner of turn 5. Down a gear, get the rotation. Up into 3rd on the run in towards turn number 6. Patience required again, and then open up the steering and the throttle as early as you can. Turn 7 will be flat, but it's very quickly followed by the braking zone of 8, so you won't go all the way to the apex of 7, so you can make the entry in the braking zone straight as you can. Patience again, open up the steering, careful on the power. Great car control so far from Valentin through the fast kinks of 9 and 10, and then gradually peeling off the speed in towards turn 11. Squeeze the power on gently. Then turn 12, arguably the trickiest corner on the circuit. You do have to be aggressive on the entry and use as much as you dare on the exit. Cars can get very easily unsettled with that bump through the exit of 12. Long left-hander at 13 and spot your braking point 14. So tricky in the cockpits of these GT3 cars. Open up steering out of the final corner, and what's it going to be for Valentin Barrier as he heads towards the start-finish line? 35.722, immediately displaced by Grant Correcas in that Ferrari. So 35.4, but you can see how much time we have lost from those practice sessions. We were almost heading into the 29s by the end of that session, and now about 5 to 6 seconds slower across the board. Carpenter just half a tenth slower than Valentin Barrier. Henrik Gamble, Norita, Sam Gaskell have all made their way to the line. Big spread of times though. 1.2 seconds down, Josef Kufel, Florian Duakop in the Honda. Now, this is another interesting protagonist potentially for this evening. Has been, especially in these mixed or wet conditions where the Honda tends to fly. Oh my goodness, speaking of flying, someone's had a moment and a half. That was number 25 car of Marco Wong for West Competition Racing. He will go back to pit lane, unsurprisingly. But Florian Duakop, in these mixed conditions, he has had electric pace on occasion so far this season. I think 3 pole positions to his name. Has taken a race win earlier on in the season as well. He did that at round number 5 of the season. As he ended last season looking so strong at the Nordschleife. And it does look like these Hondas could be in a pretty good shape if we continue with these wet weather conditions. Eric Del Fanta sneaks his way up to the top of the order. Timo Karppinen is absolutely flying at the moment in this Bentley. So maybe that was me saying that these conditions and the track would not suit this car. As Pranav joining us in the chat, good time as he sees a man that took Visceral Esports to a 2nd race victory this season. And Timo Karppinen is absolutely lighting up the timing screens. This is going to be a mighty lap time from the Finnish driver as he heads towards the line. It's a 34.535. He is 0.6 of a second clear of Grantas Correcas. And whilst the track is likely going to continue to get faster and faster, that's a bit of a statement and a half. We'll have to see how things progress on from here on out. As they're already flying along, and a big warm welcome to Pranav, cheering on his lads for the evening. Of course, he was beaming ear to ear last week after Karppinen brought that win home. And I'm sure we already getting twitchy on his seat, although he has got competition, has Mr. Karpik and Nicholas Huben, who has a championship to be thinking about. He goes to the top of the timing sheets on a 34.400, but Karpik, again, he's a little bit bottled in behind the Mustang here, but he's going 7/10 of a second quicker than he was on his last lap. So he's looking to head into the 33s. The track is definitely getting quicker. You see, we've made our way from damp to greasy conditions, and everybody's finding time. Philip Manar jumps up in towards P2. Carpenter has been given that grace and freedom to continue on. We'll go on board with the Bentley, as you see, a handful of oversteer on the entry. Absorbs the curb like an absolute champion on the exit, and now through turn 13 we get a different view with the right-hand drive Bentley over off into the countryside of Not Valencia, and we come out of turn 14 towards the line. He will go. It's going to be another improvement for the number 10 guy into the 33s easily. And again, he's finding chunks of time. Aidan Walsingham improves behind in the Mustang, but he's 4/10 of a second away. Sam Gaskell, again, for this release force. What a turn of pace that they're having at the moment. Lamborghini is flying, although Leon Burns in the Ferrari 296. Oh, this is going to be a fantastic qualifying session. You could just tell the track's going to get faster and faster, and it's all going to come down to the wire. I wonder if we'll have a bit of a situation like we've had in real racing recently in F3 at Monza. Slightly different reasons. Everyone was trying to go for the slipstream on one another, and they actually parked it between the two Lesmos. Not something that we're particularly used to. Kevin today in the number 29 car. I think he is part of the Visceral squad as well, if I'm not mistaken. Can only make it 1, 2, and 3, but Leon Byrne might be able to say something about that. He does indeed. A 33.407 from the Rem Wilson Esports driver. And this is absolutely... There's a bit of correction of oversteer on the exit of turn 1, but he will go back to the pit lanes and get a new set of tyres on board. We'll go back towards Aidan Walsingham, actually, is the one on the move at the moment. See, in the Mustang, getting a chunk of time. He's 7/10 of a second up, very, very wide on the exit. Sam Gaskell flying as well in the Lamborghini. These two are going to be pointing their way to the top of the timing sheets. And as the track continues to get faster, it's all going to be about timing your laps at the very end. Justin Stubenrauch, who took glory at Hungaroring with an absolutely exceptional performance there, gets himself what was up to P3, but Aidan Walsingham says, thank you very much, but I want to fancy a chance of pole position, but it won't be without Nicholas Huben putting in a strong effort as well. Sam Gaskell improves as well. Number 9 car goes up into the P1 spot. Now it's over to the German driver, 8/10 of a second up on his lap time, which right now would not be good enough to displace that Lamborghini. We've been seeing the Raging Bull finding time every now and again, and it is really starting to come alive. Huben, what does he do? Kevin today goes on a 33.257. And this release sports right now, these two Lamborghinis, 1 and 2. My goodness. Oh, that's going to have a slight compromising effect on Sam Gaskell's last attempt. We'll just turn the camera over here for just a moment. Under 6 minutes of qualifying left to go, but George Boothby, the man who's trying to find his first opportunity for a race win, starting it off well into the 32s we go. It's a 32.9 for George Boothby. But the times are continuing to improve. Marco Schada in... one of the fastest taxis, by the looks of it, that you can find around in the... Although he's got the crash test dummy symbol on the front of it. I hope that's not too much of an indication of how he's planning on his race going. But anyway, we'll focus on qualifying for the time being. 7/10 up on his previous lap time of 34.262 would see him make his way up into a top 10. He needs to find a little bit more if he wants to start challenging towards the very pointy end. But my goodness, dynamic stuff here around this fantastic circuit. Still greasy conditions for the time being. If it does start to head to green by the end of the session, might start to see the dynamic about which cars are looking quick begin to change. But as of right now, it looks like it's game on between the likes of the Mustangs, the Lamborghinis. Looking very good. Hondas, Ferraris as well. I think the Hondas and the Ferraris would probably like it if it was a little bit more rain down on the track. Meanwhile, Fabio Steyer He's about to make a big improvement. Should be on for a 33.4. Will be well inside the top 10 with this one. Oh, in actual fact, only scrapes his way in. The margin is very tight between some of those cars. You can see a tenth of a second between him and P6. And half second away from George Boothby's best effort. Florian Duacop in the Honda then, trying to dial in more pace in his laps. Fantastic stuff and fantastic turn of form from Florian this season. He is going purple on this lap so far as well. Still has quite a way to go. And right now this would be good enough certainly to get into the 32s. Nicholas Huben brings out the yellow flag. Won't have too many more attempts. These drivers are running out of time. Florian Duacop though, absolutely flying right now in the Honda. And I wonder what the exchange is right now in terms of getting these tyres up to temperature, because if it is greasy conditions, they might be struggling slightly as Leon Burns sleeks his way up to the top of the timing sheets. Didn't even see the sectors going on in, so the track, you can see, is continuing to get quicker as we make our way along. 0.8 of a second out now is Florian Duacop. He's going to be heading for the 0.5s, maybe into the low end of the 32s if he can bring it all together out of the final corner, trying to get on the power as early as he can. It's been a tidy lap from the German driver, trying to make it a 4th pole position of the season of Florian Duacop. The number 4, going for number 4, is going to put himself to the top of the timing sheets by just over a 10th. We turn our attention now to the likes of Sasha Vassner, P16. As it stands, half a second up. Philip Menard jumps up into P2, just 0.04 of a second away from Florian Duacop. Leon Burns improving. Campanella up there now as well. 2.5 minutes left on the clock. Who knows what the order is going to be at the end of all of this. Vassner goes up into P7. Duacop is flying. He's found another 0.3 in the opening sector. But Leon Burn is also finding good time as well. We'll go on board with the Ferrari driver. Is that Campanella ahead in the Lamborghini? Think it may be. Actual fact, I think it's one of the other cars. I think it's Sam Gaskell actually. As Michael Frey in the Porsche. The Swiss driver puts 0.2 of a second on everybody else, but Leon Burnt trying to get to the very low end of the 32s. Carpenter goes P2, but it's Leon Burnt to the top of the timing sheets, but I don't think it's going to be for very long, although it's close. Florian Duacop, he dropped a little bit of time there. And some of these drivers, Florian included, when he gets to the line, will only have one more lap to go. Some of those other cars that have made their way to the line a bit sooner will get a chance for 2 more laps. Are the tyres in the right place? Is the track going to be in the right place? Florian Duacop then, his penultimate effort, not going to be good enough for provisional pole. And Leon Burnt is improving. So is Michael Frey. Carpenter today. Leitonen up there as well. Barrier, Gaskell. So many big improvements coming in. Vincent Proel even. 0.8 of a second. Currently P20. That would see him get all the way in towards the top 10. Philip Menard slowing down. He's looking to set up his next lap. And it's all going to be about these final moments. Even Noah Reeder is 1.1 seconds up on the Delta. Michael Frey flying in the Porsche as well with number 15. He'll be one of these next cars to cross the line. You should have one more opportunity, but this is going to be a big lap from the Swiss driver. Every now and again, he has poked his head in towards the top 10 and done something special. Can he do something incredible tonight? He's had a little bit of a tardy exit out of the final corner. It's going to be good enough, though, to go into the 31s. It's a 31.865. And it looks like he's got the fuel for one more. Leon Burnt, though. He came into trouble earlier on in the season at Watkins Glen, trying to take his first race victory, and he's trying to go for it again. It's a 31.7. He'll start his final lap now, and it is game on. Look at the traffic. Everybody trying to go across the line for the very last time. George Boothby right now is up by a second. He's going to soar his way up into the top 7. Just about starts another lap with a few seconds to go. Aidan Walsingham now onto provisional pole, and that is the clock done and dusted with. So Florian Duacop, he'll be the next one across the line. It's not going to be a 4th pole position for the German driver. And we'll have to wait and see who is next going to go for glory. The number 19 car heading towards the line. I'm trying to see who that is. It was Marco Schade that's put in a lap. Number 26, Josef Kufel, up by 0.3 of a second and 32.5 incoming. That'll be for just outside of the top 20. Leon Burns is the one lighting up the timing sheets at the moment. He is going to be, and Philip Manar, a 31.612. It is absolutely game on here. Aidan Walsingham is improving as well. Heading in towards the middle sector, he's found half a second. Leon Burns, a little bit further up the order, could actually get a handy little tow from the Mustang up ahead. For the Ferrari driver, Michael Frey puts in his final bid for pole position. It's a 31.505, Leighton up into P3. Look at the tow that the Ferrari's going to get. It's a mighty saw towards the front. Karppinen, Whitehead takes it in briefly, but Leon Burns, look at the times coming in. Hubert up to P2 is Leon Burns. For the time being, can anyone find out? Carreras is absolutely flying. He's a second up on the Delta. Can he snatch it? Yes, he does. A 30.992. Is there anyone that can do anything else about this? Walsingham has dropped down the order. He goes in for his final attempt. He can't make it pole position. And I said to keep an eye on that man. And that is the reason why. Because Grantas Carreras in the Ferrari, he's made it a 296.12 on the front row of the grid. And as the track was drying out, the young Lithuanian, the Pro Series champion from a few seasons ago, dials it all in when it matters and puts it on pole. An incredible run there from the Scuderia Ferrari Esports driver. I believe his first pole position in the Pro Series with that team. And could you have made up, and I'll tell you what, the third row of this grid, we'll walk through it in just a moment, but I'll tell you what, in terms of a championship situation, it's a pretty fun one. And if that was anything to go by for this evening's race, I cannot wait to see how things kick off in a short moments. Unbelievable stuff from all of our drivers here. Fantastic. Not Valencia putting on a fantastic show, and that is going to be the way they refer to it for the remainder of the evening. And especially with I must admit, okay, I was a bit miffed about not going to Brands Hatch. With a qualifying session like that, setting up the premise that we have for this race, I'll let it go. Perhaps you guys know just a little bit more than I do. You chose it well, and I commend your choices because what an incredible session that was. Mixed conditions just make racing so good. And these guys, they always put on an incredible show and bring everything up to such a tight level, going for some incredible prizes in this championship. And Carreras has put himself in prime position to make it a 9th different winner of the season. Absolutely mind-blowing stuff here in the Pro Series. If you did enjoy that chaotic qualifying session before we head into 90 minutes of action, do consider hitting the follow buttons. We try to head to that 3,900 follow milestone this evening. Give these guys a shout out, a round of applause for that one, and especially for this man, Grantas Carreras, at the final moments, making it his first pole position in a while. Leon Burns joins him on the front row. He was the man on the move for so much in the closing stages of that session. But in the end, number 3 can't just getting the better. Aidan Walsingham, great session there from him as Eric Del Fanta, the first of the Hondas, gets himself up into P4. And then it's the battle of our championship protagonist, Niklas Huben, P5 on the grid. And George Boothby on the outside of him to make up the third row of the grid as well. They will then have the BMW, a new face too, the top split of the Pro Series, Amir Al-Fasi. Fantastic stuff there from the number 20 car. And then Kevin Today in the number 29 Lamborghini. Visual Esports, that was their highest bidder towards pole position, and it was looking so good. Briefly, Karppinen was up into P2, and all the times kept on improving. Valentin Barrier and Sam Gaskell will make up the 5th row of the grid and round out the top 10. There's last week's race winner in those new shiny colours for Visual Esports. Team Karppinen in P11, Luke Whitehead. He'll be wondering how much more he could have got out of that session. So good over one lap. And so fantastic to have him back on the track. Keep an eye on him as well. He's a 2-time Pro Series champion for a reason. He can always do something special from anywhere on the grid. Fabrizio Campanella and Michael Frey make up the 7th row of the grid. Marco Bischoff will then start in 15th place Topsy-turvy season for our only other two-time Pro Series champion. Philomena, the South African, starts down in P16. Sakari Leitonen, all these names, you saw them for a moment up into P3 and then just all dropped. At the end of the session, Noah Reader down to P18 by the end of that session. And a man that was looking to try to make it 4 poles this season, Florian Duakop, down in 19th place by the end of this one. Justin Stubenrauch, he won at the Hungaroring. Might be a tricky one for him to repeat such things tonight, down in P20. Marco Wong starts in 21st place. Bit of a tricky qualifying session for the number 25 car, but he gets himself ahead of Henrik Gamble on the 11th row of the grid. Marco Schade, crash test and dummy speedy taxi colours. Not quite sure which one it's meant to be, but either way, I'm sure they'll have an interesting, busy race nonetheless, down in 23rd place to start. Vincent Proel, despite his improvements throughout the session, he starts in 24th. Josef Kufel in the number 26 Porsche. He starts down 25th ahead of Fabio Steyer in the number 23 car. Sasha Vassner in that fantastic sounding Aston Martin. He starts in 27th place. Samir Foch definitely can't miss this one on the grid. And then last but certainly not least, Alexandra Tichnos. And you're absolutely right, it was Michael Moaning the one at the Hungaroring. I've got my Mustangs muddled up. All of that crazy action-packed goodness that we had in that qualifying session, I don't even know where I am. And as was also depicted earlier on in the stream of not Valencia. Anyway, we'll move on. We've got some glorious, wonderful racing to get stuck into. And with that qualifying session, you see the track hasn't quite recovered up into dry conditions. It's still, I mean, we have gone to fast, so we are effectively on dry tarmac, but it does feel like it has a little bit of a sheen left with it. The wind isn't the greatest, but there is a little bit of a grey overcast look. Certainly for the first 30 minutes of this race, it looks like we will all be fine and good to go in terms of dry running, but who knows? With the mandatory pit stop window in this race, 90 minutes of action, we could have some mixed conditions and it could really change things up. Who knows? But Grant Carreras dealing with the conditions beautifully in that last qualifying session, looking to try to return to winning ways. In his championship winning season, he was absolutely formidable, but it's been a while since we've seen the young Lithuanian top the podium. But who knows, with 8 different winners in 8 rounds of this season, who knows, round number 9 might go to Granted. We're about to find out. Lights are shortly going to go out as we'll be underway for the 9th round of the Case King Pro Series of Season 15. And it looks like it's a very even start. People jostling for position immediately as they head on down towards turn 1. But I think Grant Carreras has got the job done to hold on to the lead. He'll be side by side behind Leon Burns. Brave around the outside as everyone. That was George Boothby also going a little bit wide in the background. He'll be trying to apply the pressure. Kevin today going all the way around the outside. Can't make it stick. But Grant Carreras holds on to the lead then ahead of Leon Burns, Walsingham, Del Fanta, Huben, and then George Boothby. All following in hot pursuit. There's contact. That's Alfati behind. And there's several cars sent around there. They are going to get back underway. One of this release podcast, Sam Gaskell, that's been knocked out of that one as well. I think one of the other Lamborghinis got a little bit slowed up. I think it's Kevin today that's dropped position. So Visceral Esports, frustration and disaster on the opening lap. And oh my goodness, what on earth are we having here? Down in towards the final, not even the final corner. We haven't even done a lap yet. We're into the middle sector as they fly on through this left hand. And there's further contact in the background. It's Fabio Steyer that's gone around there. And in the Porsche, number 23 car starting to get back underway again, but it's chaos in the middle of the pack. And there's further contact. Marco Wong versus Michael Frey. They'll be side by side in towards turn 12. It's going to be brave from the Porsche to make it stick there, but he keeps his foot in it. And there was Marco Schade trying to go around the outside. There was never going to be space there. Now he's got Henrik Gamble on his case as well. He's going to try braking all the way around the outside. He might make it work, but I think he's going to run out of track. He's squeezed, and there's another car going off. That was... who's out in the back? It's Josef Kufel. Josef Kufel that's gone wide there towards the inside of the circuit. Frustration there for him in the background. But at the front of the field, Leon Burnt still applying the pressure, chasing Korekas, and with Walsingham directly behind, and your two championship protagonists, or your main protagonists, I should say. Championship fight is still very much on between a lot of these cars. Philip Menard, Delphanta are still challenging towards the point end of the grid as well. And Delphanta sitting ahead of all of them as it stands. But my goodness, busy stuff in this session so far. Continuing on further down the order, Kufel trying to continue on here. Almost to dive down the inside of the Mustang of Samir Foch. Sam Gaskell's going to try to hold it around the outside in the Lamborghini, but that Mustang surely will start to pull away on the back straight. He does. And there is no way that the Lamborghini can make it around the outside there. In actual fact, has to be careful in his rear view mirrors from the BMW of the recovering Amir. And they continue on then. Kylo suggesting already first win of the season for Grantis Korekas. Who knows? 87 minutes to go. Absolutely. This is an awful lot of chaos in just a couple of laps. But it's the Case King Pro Series. This is what we know and love. Meanwhile, George Boothby seeing his championship rivals up in front of him, and this Mustang is an absolutely mighty car in a straight line. You can see gaining, putting the pressure on his main rival in the championship, and Nicholas Hooven has made a mistake. The over and under might come good for George Boothby, and these are important positions for the championship. Boothby down the inside, Mr. Consistency of the season so far, and they come out on the exit, and it's the Mustang that gets up in front. Hooven, does he look to try to fight back and find a way around? He's got to be careful because Valentine Barrier, a teammate of course to George Boothby, will be trying to apply the pressure as well. Marco Wong has gone around on the exit of turn 2, getting himself back underway then. And unfortunately, going to drop all the way to the back of the field. But crazy intense and important action in terms of the championship positions happening at the moment. Delphanta making a little bit of a breakaway from these drivers at the moment. But it does look like Boothby has some good pace here in Racetrack. Track has gone to optimal grip levels now. So we are in firmly dry conditions. This is what these guys would have been practicing the vast majority of time. Wide moment for Boothby. He's got to be careful with track limits. Carpenter as well, wrestling the Bentley through that sector. That Bentley was absolutely like a torpedo up the back straight of Paul Ricardo. I don't think he's quite the same here. Although Leon Burnt looking pretty handy on the back of Grantis Korekas right now. 0.2 of a second quicker than the Ferrari ahead of him. But as of right now, nowhere to go. And Walsingham staying with the German driver and continuing to apply the pressure. Marco Bischoff and Stubenraut swapping positions on the run towards turn 1. Bischoff might be able to lose another one, not quite. South African of Philip Menard will have to stay behind for a moment. And absolutely, speaking of torpedo, Jardier, unfortunately no, so the Jardier trophy will have to go to someone else on the track for this evening. And we've got a suggestion there that we will have drive-through penalties. So a circuit where track cuts are pretty easy to come by. There's one thing to push all the way to the limit over a qualifying lap. It's another thing to do it consistently for 90 minutes straight, especially when the margins are so close. What's up for grabs is so close, as well as a big welcome in from those at the German stream. I hope that everything is all good over there. I have a horrible feeling that would only happen if we were in a little bit of a compromise. But welcome on in, everybody, to the English Twitch channel of Low Fuel Motorsport. Fantastic action kicking off so far in round number 9 of the season. And I think as we continue to press on in this race, it is going to be a busy one all the way to the end. Sasha Vasta trying to apply the pressure around the outside. And unfortunately, the connection over on the German stream is not so strong, as I have had a topsy-turvy season myself over the course of this season. So a big apologies over to that side. Hopefully, you guys will be up and running and business as usual. But welcome here for the time being. We'll keep you entertained. These guys will keep you entertained, and Carpenter's trying to get this release sports up another place, side by side with Valentine Barrier. Barrier having to take the defensive line in towards turn number 4, and he squeezes out the Bentley on the exit, so Carpenter will have to find another opportunity. opportunity. And Luke Whitehead stepping out the back end of this Porsche 992 that he knows oh so well as he tries to get that car dialed in. Of course, struggling usually in a straight line. And this Bentley could have another opportunity here. Builds up an advantage, but the door is going to close by the time they get to the apex. And the pressure continues to be applied, but Carpenter coming off the back of that fantastic race win last time out at Paul Ricard, looking to try to keep up that steam for this Release Sports and see if he can do something special once again. P8 at the moment. Meanwhile, a little bit of a poor sector from Leon Burns. Aidan Walsingham in that Mustang getting ever closer, and that is a concern for these Ferraris because that car is mighty in a straight line. It has been all season long. The Mustang is rapid, and he set the fastest lap of the race last time around as well. And we see as the laps come on in, he wasn't quite the fastest of that leading trio, but he was definitely quicker than the car ahead. Everybody using all the track and a little bit more as they head on down in towards turn 1. They push on. And that Mustang will try to find an opportunity, as will Michael Frey diving on down in towards turn 2. Nothing that Leighton can do against the late braking maneuver of the Porsche. Big thank you for the follows here on the Twitch channel. We are just 10 followers away from 3,900, as that's a mistake there from Michael Frey. And immediately after getting the job done, he'll have to try to do it all again, but he'll try to do it in the very next corner towards the outside. Not quite. Door shut and closed firmly by Leighton on the exit. And the fight for P16 is raging on just as intensely as it is elsewhere in the field. Always so fantastic to see that no matter where you are in these grids, you can have a fantastic bit of action all the way along. Luke Whitehead looming around the rear diffuser of that Bentley, but just unable to nip his way on past. Through turn 12 they'll go consistently. Carpenter running a little bit wider, maybe a bit fearful of that inside apex curb. And Luke Whitehead trying to close the distance in that Porsche, but then we get to this big, long back straight. There's just nothing he can do against that Bentley power. Someone that might be in a good position, though, to make an overtake happen could be this man, Justin Stewart, moving his way up through the order, trying to see if he can get past Noah Eder, as George Boothby has got the job done into P4. Where did that come from? It was a pretty decent gap between the pair of them, but Boothby then passed both of his championship rivals and now sets off in sight of his teammate Aidan Walsingham, who is up in P3, fighting intensely. Stubenraut has launched the attack on Noah Eder, but Noah Eder is not giving up, and his teammate is watching behind with a great deal of interest. Marco Bischoff, the two-time Pro Series champion, stamps a throttle to the 4, trying to take one, maybe even take 2, in towards the next couple of corners. He's not got past Stubenraut there. Now on the attack for Noah Eder, the two-time champ, trying to go for 2 positions in just as many corners. He's in the slipstream. No love lost between the teammates here, and then towards the next turn they go. Noah Eder backing them all up on the apex, as it is 4 Mustangs in a row, with the Honda of Florian Duacot tagging along to the end of that one. But Eder will hold on for the time being. But look at this trade, the 2 Team Nitro cars, fantastic battling there. Bischoff trying to get himself on the move, but unable to do so this time around. Made his way past 1, has Philip Menard to worry about though. And as they continue on in this race, we're only barely just over 10 minutes in for this one. And it's been a mighty start. Grant Correca's continuing to hold on out front. 7/10 is the gap to Leon Burns, who continues to be under pressure from Aidan Walsingham. George Boothby looming behind. And then Delfanta Hoban squabbling away as well. And that's Marco Bischoff having to take the defensive line. Philip Menard, I think, fancies a move up the inside. He has sent it up the inside. They will be side by side on the exit. Eder, as we look underneath the rear diffuser of this Mustang, it roars away. And Philip Menard roars his way up into P12. He's gained 4 positions so far in this race. Not quite as big of a mover as Noah Eder. 7 places for the number 17 car. Has often been showing his more experienced teammates the way to extract pace out of this car. And for that team for just the last couple of seasons, really stepping up the mark for this squad. And Philip Menard now, a driver we know can contest for race wins. Trying to see if he can move his way up the order any further. and in towards the top 10. Fantastic fights kicking off with these guys still chopping, changing for lines. That's why you've got to be so careful when you're in these trains, because you never quite know when the car behind is going to search for an opportunity. Manar runs it wide. He should just about have enough margin to keep the likes of Marco Bischoff back, and he does. But he'll be under pressure in towards turn 1. Meanwhile, Leon Burns fastest up of the race. And the margins between these guys at the front is absolutely nothing. 5 thousandths of a second quicker than the car behind of Aiden Walsingham. But then again, we've got bigger problems because Marco Bischoff trying to go for a move around the outside of Philip Manar. Cannot make it stick. Meanwhile, at the front of the pack, here we go. This is your lead trio. George Boothby trying to close up towards this train. He is slowly eking out the gap to Del Fanta and Huben behind. Some valuable positions made up for the championship leaders. Meanwhile, Stubenrauch there. Here we go, battling with Marco Bischoff. Trying to go around the outside now. Has Duacop to the inside. Very close between them. Duacop gets a little bit caught up on the inside curb. Can't get the throttle down, and he will have to slot back in to position. Meanwhile, mistake briefly for Grantas Caracas, and that suddenly brings this back all together. Less than a second separating your top 3. As all 3 of them trying to go for glory. Grant Caracas, a multiple-time race winner, a champion of the Pro Series. Leon Burns trying to go for his first race win in the series. Oh, that's an instability in that 296, isn't it? You saw the way it flicked its way across that bump. Thankfully, keeps it all together. That's a little bit dicey for that car. Aiden Walsingham has won multiple races in his time as well in the Pro Series, and he is now applying the pressure to Leon Burns once again, who's dropped a little bit away from the slipstream. Will have to go defensive, but only a little bit of a maneuver required to keep the Mustang behind, unless Walsingham thinks about a launch up the inside in towards turn 2. He's thinking about it, but he's a bit too far away. The Ferrari's brakes are very competitive, and that is Huben trying to find a way around the outside of Eric Del Fanta as well. Cannot make anything stick there, so we'll have to stay behind for the time being. Meanwhile, scraps as well between the likes of Leighton and Frey. Gamble. Frey will be a little bit frustrated here. He made his way past Leighton in the earlier stages of this race. Could have tried to go off in charge of our other fight with Durakop, Stubenrauch, Bischoff, Manar, Ida, but that mistake just about dropping him behind. Is Boothby closing to the front as it stands by a smidge. He was the fastest of that top 4 by 2.5 tenths over your lead 2, and 700ths quicker than his teammate Aiden Walsingham. So both Mustangs reeling in those cars up ahead. Maybe those Mustangs taking a bit more able to maintain their pace a bit stronger than those Ferraris, because the Ferrari will tend to make up its time around here in the corners. That's where the Ferrari is so good. But that does sometimes come at a penalty and a cost, and that is in tyre wear. Now, whilst the platform can hold on to its tyres, generally speaking, quite well, as Philip Manar sends out the inside in towards the final turn, it's still, you know, if you're taking these corners faster, because that's where the car is strong and that's where the lap time is, you are going to eat into the tread faster and faster. Aiden Walsingham, again, looking for an opportunity behind Leon Burns, especially with the slipstream as well. It's a very pacey car in these sorts of race conditions. Sasha Vassner under pressure from Al Farsi, who continues trying to recover his way up the order. George Boothby, again, taking 1 to 2 tenths of a second away from your top 3, which with Leon Burns closing the gap. These margins, topsy-turvy everywhere that you look in the field as it stands. And we'll go on board with the Ferrari driver chasing his first Pro Series win. And absolutely, we've got people eager in the chat for rain. I can't say that I would be disappointed if we had the odd shower or two over the course of this race, because it does make things so interesting. I'm sure that these Ferraris would be hoping very much for that, because that isn't the Mustang's strong suit. So the likes of Walsingham, Boothby will be hoping for dry as well, because the Aston Martin, the Honda behind George Boothby, those cars will come alive in the wet conditions. So for the sake of the championship, for his championship campaign, he would rather it stays dry. And whilst we do love the #1 man on the LFM platform. We certainly do love a bit of rain and some action-packed goodness in the Pro Series, which it is continuing to deliver. Why would we even have any doubts? Meanwhile, back further down the order, it's all kicking off. There we go. Almost 3 wide on the run towards turn 1. That's El Fati. They are going to go 3 wide. Surely that's not going to end up working. It's Vastner all the way around the outside, but he has to run wide on the exit. He gives them all room. El Fati now 10 to the back of this trio. Marco Schada sends it down the inside. The number 20 car trying to follow on through. And the Honda squeezes through, but just the smallest of margins, and here comes the beam. Oh, that was very close. Sasha Vastner, close racing there, giving just enough space, both at turn 1 and turn 4. Fantastic racing. And so it's what we love about this incredible action in the Pro Series. It doesn't matter where you are in the order. There is always a great battle kicking off, and it makes you feel like you're fighting for a championship, even if you are down towards P20. It gives you all the great thrills and spills. Andy joining us in the chat. I presume it was you, Andy, streaming over on the German side today, and I'm so sorry about the connection, but a warm welcome to you and all of your viewers from over there. We will enjoy the action here on the English Twitch channel for the remainder of this next 70 minutes. And that's a big slide from Sasha Vastner. What a big show he's putting on today, and that gives another opportunity to the BMW around the outside. He looks to go now. Surely that won't work. Oh, he's taking all the track and a little bit more. I need to have a quick gander towards the pointy end of the grid. Nothing changing there. Neither for Van Zien Barry. He lurks around the rear diffuser of Nicholas Huben. Leighton and Gamble swapping around on the run towards turn 1. But what about these guys? Sasha Vastner having to concede to the straight line pace of that BMW. Kufel trying to find opportunity now as well. He's got to be on the defensive. Sam Gaskell is trying to bounce his way back up through the order. Unable to do so as Luke Whitehead and Fabrizio Campanella door-to-door on the run through the middle sector as they head on in towards turn 6. And all the way to the left-hand side of the circuit, Campanella will go, trying to shorten up that line as much as he can and defending the inside in towards turn number 8. The stewards have been busy so far. They have indeed. We'll try to catch up with them in a bit. Unfortunately, Mr. Commentator hasn't got himself a little bit preoccupied with this fight here because Luke Whitehead sending it down the inside. He can pull off some incredible magic sometimes. He'll try to use that flat 6 torque and acceleration to his advantage. The Lamborghini is just going to get ahead before the entry to 12, but he runs wide. Whitehead trying to pin the floor, to pin the throttle all the way to the floor. He goes with a switchback in towards turn 14, down the inside. Can't make it stick. Campanella, can he get it stopped in time? He does. The Italian, fantastic defense. The two-time Pro Series champion who power slides his way out of the final corner. And yes, we've got Stubenraut, 5-second penalty for him and a 15-second penalty for Gamble. Meanwhile, Carpenham was trying to send up the inside of Van Zien Barry. The Bentley building up that pace towards turn 1. Couldn't make it stick. And now I have to find another opportunity through here. Meanwhile, Marco Schada and Amir Al Fati. Al Fati continuing to surge his way back up through the order. We know he has good pace. Spun around on the opening lap, but he is recovering his way up the order. I think still a little bit of damage on the front end of that BMW. And actually, we would take a fantastic battle over penalties any day of the week. This is what makes this action so good. Your top 3 separated then by 0.7 of a second. And in that gap may even start to close. Bit of a mistake there from Leon Burnt. And now he's got to worry about Aidan Walsingham. If he can continue to be that close. By the time they get to the start-finish straight, that Mustang, we know how quick it is in a straight line. Could definitely find opportunity in towards turn 1. Nice question. Does the Bentley struggle to keep temps when it's colder? And I think it may do. I'm not sure. I know that it thrives when we are at hot tracks. And so Team McCarver, I think, maybe struggling a little bit compared to some of those performances and places where he has been on the stronger side. But I think certainly when it comes to the front tyres, the rear tyres tend to spin up so often in that car that it will keep it all together. Meanwhile, he's got other things to be thinking about at the moment because he is trying to go all the way around the outside of Van Zien Barry. Can't make a stick there. Can he go for the switchback like we saw from Boothby earlier on? He's trying to get to the inside line. The Frenchman trying to do everything he can to keep back the big bad Bentley. And he's running out of opportunities and he will be squeezed towards the end of a circuit by the time they get out of turn 2. But Carpenham continuing to lose bouncing barrier, the toe up ahead, and increase and improve his opportunities to go for an overtake. It's actually our closest fights on circuit for the time being. A few gaps opening up just a little bit, but 22 minutes into this race then, and your top three as they were since the start of this race. George Boothby up 2 critical places over his 2 championship protagonists and competitors. Eric Delfanta and Nicholas Huber making up P5 and P6. Barry, Carpenter, Campanella and Whitehead making up your top 10. And biggest mover on the grid so far, No Reader, has lost a little bit of progress after being passed by Philip Menard, but still 6 positions gained from the German driver and a long way to go in this one. Florian Duakop on the charge as well, applying the pressure to the back of Justin Stubenrauch, who won out at Spa as opposed to the Hungarian, as I cross over my Mustang victories of the season. You see, despite how shiny those curbs are, they're still being very usable for these GT3s, of course. The assists of these cars, the TC, the ABS, will make some of those slippery curves just a little bit more manageable. And you can see George Boothby looming ever closer. And he took a good couple of tenths of a second out of each and every one of these cars. And this fight is getting more and more intense. Fantastic stuff. And when we get to the pit stops, well, we don't have any rain looming yet. This is going to be a glorious fight. No doubt, Walsingham thrashing the back end of that Mustang on the exit of turn 5. They'll come out of 6 then. Head down the back straights of 7. But the Ferraris seemingly still great pace, holding onto their tyres, but in pure race pace, maybe not the overall car to have. Florian Duakop locked into the slipstream once again of Justin Stubenrauch, unable to make his way past his standout Mustang, just a little bit too quick in a straight line. Do we think there's an opportunity for Boothby to undercut or overcut them? Now, we've seen, I've even made evaluations of different people's strategies before. Very, very wrong over here, and I've had some impressions of what I feel to be correct and the right way to go, and I've been absolutely shown up by the aliens of the sim racing community. Apparently, Timo Carpenter said pit right away and do a super long second stint, but he won't do it. Carpenter, yeah, I mean, Carpenter in his position, for example, he's got less pressure from cars behind. He's got an almost 3-second gap to Campanella. He can maybe afford to go a little bit longer. George Boothby, I think he would be more inclined to go for an overcut. Now, the reason why I say that, and it does slightly depend upon what the likes of Delfanta and Huben do. If those guys also go long and he's able to concentrate his focus on purely the top 3 cars ahead, I think George Boothby will look to go long because he's clearly got good pace. He's also got a car that's fantastic straight line speed as well. So if he does get to the back of some of these cars, with a tyre delta especially, he will be in a very, very strong position to make overtakes happen. If he goes for the undercut, right now he's got to make up about 2.5 to 3 seconds worth of ground in order for that undercut to be successful. And those Ferraris will come back strong later on. The Mustang theoretically could hold off. Maybe no. The alternative here is that Aidan Walsingham boxes earlier, goes for the undercut, secures track position ahead of the 2 Ferraris, and then maybe does a little bit of Veloce tactic backing up. And that then puts Boothby in a stronger position for the second stint. They've got cars up here. They can play with those strategies, and we've seen Veloce utilize that before this season, previous seasons, all sorts. So there's a mixture of different ways that they can go. Sometimes I think that, they discuss some of these opportunities prior. Boothby's had to do some work to get himself into this spot, so who knows how they might end up playing out. But I think in Boothby's position, and it tends to be the strategy that's usually the more successful one for him, I'd be inclined to go for that overcut approach if he can make it work. But if the likes of Delfanta and Huben start to apply the pressure behind by going early, for the championship situation, he might have to respond to that. So very, very interesting decisions likely to be made over the next 20-odd minutes or so as we close in towards that pit stop window. Your top 3 separated by 0.8 of a second. Boothby holding that gap now around 1.5 seconds. He's got good pace. but it's not meteoric compared to those up in front. He's kind of just maintaining positions it stands at the moment. Duakop, Supermatch, and Michael Frey also battling further down the order as well. We are also just 5 followers away from 3,900, but thank you to all of those who have followed so far. And if you are enjoying the crazy action that we have going on here in the 9th round of the season, please do consider giving the channel a follow as Michael Frey trying to sneak up the inside once again. Absolutely incredible having you all here and joining in. Thank you, everybody. And we'll see if we can hit that milestone by the end tonight and maybe even get to 4,000 followers by the end of the season. One absolutely crazy thing to even be entertaining as a possibility. Thank you so much, everybody, for all of your support and being here. It is very much appreciated. I hope you are enjoying the incredible action. There we go. The goal of 3,900 has been accomplished. Thank you and welcome, everybody, to the Twitch channel. Get stuck in, buckle up, because I'm sure that for the remainder of this evening and for the remainder of this season, as the championship continues to be dynamic and go down to the wire, there is going to be a fantastic one to be locked in for over the coming weeks. But we turn our attention to the on-track action that we have going on right here, right now. Aidan Walsingham within 0.2 of a second of Leon Burnt then. That Mustang, we know how quick it can be in a straight line. We'll try to secure an opportunity, surely, either towards turn 1 or potentially towards turn 8. It can, well, if he gets a run out of turn 12 even, the possibilities for this car are there. That's what the benefit of just raw power gives you. It can save you out of certain scenarios if you make a mistake, and it can give you the opportunities and the edge that you need to capitalize on the errors of cars around you. And that is one of the big weaknesses of the Ferraris. They'll be so strong in these high-speed corners and in the middle sector, preserving their tires. But in ultimate straight line speed, they'll be thankful for the shortish straights around here, but that Mustang can come up behind you quicker than you would possibly imagine. Boothby still maintaining that advantage behind, well, as he has closed it down to 1.5 seconds. As Aidan Walsingham trying to see how late he can break into the final corner. Overcooked it just a smidge on that last occasion. And see what the lap times are from your top 4 after 30 minutes of racing. They are barely covered by a few car lengths. Fastest of the group was George Boothby by 1/10 of a second. Pretty even pace from the two Ferraris leading the way. Walsingham dropping a little bit at the tail end of the lap with that mistake into the braking zone. But how will they look to play this one out in terms of strategy? Other gaps have also started to close up as well, including this one. Marco Schada losing ground to those out in front of Sam Gaskell, who's recovering his way up through the order after that spin earlier on. You can see down 12 positions, but he has got damage on board that car, so it's not so easy and straightforward to make an overtake. We'll go on board with the Visceral Esports driver. Pranav in the chat will be cheering on his man without a doubt, the V10, screaming gloriously as he's in hot pursuit of VTEC Crazy Taxi goodness up in front. Michael Frey and Florian Duakop swap positions for a brief moment as well, just up in the battle for P15. We charge on to the back straight. You see lurking in the background Sasha Vassner in the Aston Martin, and that Honda of Marco Schada able to maintain the advantage down the back straight, but in the braking zone, this V10 powered Lamborghini looking mean as ever, as is Leon Burnt hassling the back of Grantas Carreras, and this is a genuine opportunity here. This is the closest that Leon Burnt has been in a while, as Grantas Carreras heading down the start-finish straight there. The slipstream starts to yield its reward for Leon Burnt, but he's too far away on this occasion. There's a wide moment there, and that might actually be the opportunity for Aidan Walsingham, going from being the attacker to now surely having to defend. Aidan Walsingham won't need a second invitation. He's sent out the inside. George Boothby will be licking his lips for an opportunity to get towards the podium. Leon Burnt hangs it around the outside. Carreras breathes a sigh of relief as he looks to get away here, and Leon Burnt now in a tricky spot because he's lost that gap to those cars in front. To Carreras in front of him, and the slipstream will be weaker, a lot weaker than it was before, and now protecting him from those two Mustangs behind is going to be an awful lot trickier. Walsingham able to capitalize on that opportunity, and that's the trouble when you get sucked into the dirty air. If you're not quite used to how to take the corner there, and might even get Aidan a 5-second penalty for that. I'm not sure on that front. It could do. We'll have to see what the stewards have to say. I'll be honest, I haven't been able to see what the stewards have been able to say all the race long so far. There's been too much action going on the circuit. If we do have a dull moment, which is rarely the case in the Pro Series, that we will try to see what they have been up to, because the answer is very likely quite a lot. And Walsingham within 0.4 of a second now. Korekka's the biggest lead he has had so far. That's a big oversteer moment for Aiden Walsingham. And now, is this him riding the brakes? Or has he just got his lights on? I think he might have his lights on. For a moment, I thought he was riding his brakes at the start-finish straight to give the position to George Boothby. But no, he just has his lights on. Safety first, everybody, in the world of GT3 racing. As one bit of disappointment for those in the chat, as it looks like it is at the moment. No sign of rain, but who knows what could happen in the closing stages of this race. And it almost looked like a centre late mover got turned in on, maybe racing incident, so penalty has no penalty since Burton didn't lose a position. Quite possibly, if it's a case of, if the stewards look at a situation and they think that maybe both could have done something different, both could have given a bit more room, both could have been less audacious. Leon Burns kept the position driving off circuit as well. That will be taken into account. It's a tricky one. It's a very tricky one. I don't envy the position of the stewards whatsoever, but these are wonderful, wonderful people, hidden heroes of this series that put in their time to invigilate and make this racing as good as it possibly can be, although that's a big error from Leon Burns up ahead. Struggling under brakes for the Ferrari. And now puts himself in an awkward spot. Meanwhile, Leighton having to try to hold off the BMW of Alfati, who's continuing to try to make his way up the order, making up for the time and ground he lost earlier on. Unable to do so on this occasion, and Walsingham dropping away from Leon Burns as well. So everybody continuing to charge on in this race. When will we see the first pit stops start to emerge as they're diving down the inside in towards the final turn? Is Alfati. Leighton could try to go back on the charge, although I think he's actually going to bump draft the BMW here. I think he knows that he's not quicker than the number 20. Sticks his nose towards the inside. I think actually just to lose a little bit of ground and get a bit of vision for the apex up ahead. It's not an easy one to spot. One of the easiest places, though, to get track limit warnings around this circuit. And of his Honda. Sounds pretty decent inside the cockpit of this car. It's maybe not quite the VTEC noise that you particularly associate with Honda, and how glorious it would be if it really did have those tones. Sounds ever so slightly like a droney vacuum cleaner, but for some reason I kind of like it. It sounds a bit miserable and a bit burbly and grumpy, but it's a very, very interesting car to drive. Been very quick at times in the past. Often, one that kind of burns through its tyres. They would generate a lot of rotation, good power as well. Maybe not quite in the most competitive of spots in recent history, but when those wet conditions do start to come alive, that is when these Japanese cars do start to show what they're capable of as well. So I have to see if we do have any last-minute dashes of rain by the end of the session, then we could have some action in that regard as well, and those cars starting to recover their way up the order, let alone what sort of crazy battling there could be between your race leaders. Meanwhile, Foch and Tichenot having a bit of a squabble of their own. There's the pit window now open, so will we see anybody starting to come in early? Now, we did say, Kylo said that this man, Timo Karppinen, who is stuck under the rear wing of Valentine Barrier, has been for a while, continuing to apply pressure in that Visual Esports Bentley race winner from last week. It was suggested he might go for an aggressive undercut. And it does look like he's got good pace to maybe be able to utilise that. I'm just not sure how well those tyres will survive in the second stint of this Bentley. It's not exactly known as a car to handle that degradation all too well. The rear tyres especially a bit on the squirmy side. And yet, degradation, so often the case about being in that sweet spot about temperatures, indeed, Mr. Carpet, on your screens, being in the sweet spot. If the tyres are overheating, they can blister, they can thermally degrade a lot quicker. If you're underheating them, the elasticity in the rubber is not in a happy place. The contact patch of a tyre doesn't move in the way that it wants to, and that can actually end up causing graining on the tyres, and that can increase the rate of degradation as well. So, temperature windows is so important. This Bentley is kind of likely to be an awkward spot. And there we go. So the first opportunity we doubted, well, excuse me, Kylo doubted, not we, Kylo doubted to see if this Bentley would make it way into the pits. And he has indeed. Carpenter then going for the aggressive undercuts. And with the sun coming out around the circuit, the Visceral Esports Bentley has been the first one to blink. We've also got Henrik Gamble in... I can't click on him because everyone's driving past him. And in a minute, there we go, BMW for Team Nitro has come into the pits, as well as Evening 2, the boss man himself, Boris, joining for this incredible evening of action. Of course, the one of the founders of Low Fuel Motorsport. And has brought this incredible community all together and enabled all of this glorious action to happen. So much to thank for him. So do give him a warm welcome in the chat for the evening. As Pranov in the chat is Carpenter's fade out in the end. Then to blame Kylo. Yeah, Kylo possibly encouraging that aggressive undercut. But who knows? Carpenter, can he make it work? We've seen him admittedly deal less well with slippy tyres at other points in the season, but he is coming off the back of some very good results, of course, with that race win last week. Now, apparently we've got some difficulty for Samir Foch, and I don't think he is in the server anymore. Not quite sure what happened to the Mustang driver and beloved streamer, but it seems that he has run into some form of strife, sadly. And we will have to see. Does anyone else come into the pits as far as your race leaders go? The answer is no. Michael Frey going a bit slowly there allows Florian Duicot to make his way on by, and that is Stubenrauch that comes on in. So do Visceral Esports have something up their sleeve here? Carpenter in, Stubenrauch in now as well. They're going early with these stops. We'll go back to this battle for P2. And you see this train continuing to close up. Walsingham, the fastest of the 3 last round time around. Quarter of a second quicker than 2 Ferraris ahead of him. And George Boothby maintaining that sort of pace as well. And unfortunately left after being spun around by Tichenor. Unfortunate stuff there. And couldn't quite see the incident. Meanwhile, Walsingham hunting again around the back of this Ferrari. And he's going to be wondering, so is Boothby, about what can he do in terms of strategy. Boothby's in I don't want to say no man's land. He's quite clearly not a million miles away from the battle for the lead, but he's not quite locked onto the rear of these cars. So, you know, trying to go for that undercut, trying to, you know, minimize the time loss or be under less pressure from those behind with an overcut strategy. It's not quite as simple. It's not quite going to be as simple for Del Fanta, Huben, Barrier either. Barrier could go long, and it will be no one from that top 5, 6 even, to come into the pit. So interesting stuff. Meanwhile, Sam Gaskell applying the pressure to the back of Vincent Proel. Having made his way past other cars previously, the Lamborghini that was looking like a bit of a handful, but certainly speedy on the brakes. George was flying once he got into P4. Absolutely, he's been on great pace so far. And I do, the other thing that I could be wondering is he just waiting for that opportunity for those top 3 to squabble, go for the undercut then, and then try to claim those positions while those guys are worrying too much about themselves and less so about the #1 man in the server, who ridiculously, despite being the winningest driver in Pro Series history, is going for his first win of the season. 8 rounds in, 8 different winners. And right now, we are looking on target to have a nice different winner as well, because Aidan Walsingham hasn't won so far this season. Neither has Leon Burt, neither has Korekas, neither has Boothby. Your first winner, looking to try to repeat that success, will be Eric Del Fanta, who took victory at the season opener in that Honda. But things heating up again as Grant Korekas looks to be struggling here. He lost 2/10 on the last lap. He's lost some more to the likes of Leon Burt behind. Is bringing Aidan Walsingham along as well. Has there been a champion without a win? There has not. The closest to ever do it was Nicholas Huben. Went into the finale at Monza, winless all season, and then was, despite his best attempts, did have a little bit of success. Meanwhile, Walsingham, now he goes for the move on his contacts. A little bit of contact back towards turn 1. They survive somehow, and all of a sudden in comes Boothby to join. He's been watching and waiting for an opportunity, and in blink of an eye, it's game on between the top 4 for the race win. Boothby doesn't quite manage to get the job done, but now he is there with that pack. And now he seriously has to think about what he does. But a little smidge of contact between Leon Byrne and Walsingham through turn 1. Oh, I thought that was going to be a much, much bigger incident, but they somehow keep it all together. Cat-like reactions from the pair of them, and Boothby so nearly able to use that as an opportunity to get himself up into P3. But he stays in P4 for the time being. What will these guys continue to do? I was thinking Edgar Walsingham was taking a bit of a trip for stage exit right on the way out of turn 1 there, but thankfully kept it all going. Actually, remarkably neat and tidy. And there we go. There's the undercut in full effect. Team Carpenter at 29.8. He is 0.6 of a second quicker than your race leaders for the cars that he was battling. So for the likes of Valentin Barrier. You know, we're looking again, half second, 0.6. So he is on the move right now, and each lap that is going by is going to be rewarding him. But I think by the time this undercut comes to an end, he could be challenging into a top 5, but I don't think he will move his way up too much further than that. Meanwhile, 4-way battle between Proel, Gaskell, Shana, Vassner. Everyone bumbling along that curve, and that's what we call an undercut. It is indeed, but I have to say, if we call it a good undercut by the end of this race, and then we can discuss amongst ourselves politely, professionally, and calmly as to whether or not it's a good decision or not. Meanwhile, Boothby squabbling on the back of Leon Burns, unable to make anything stick. Meanwhile, how does Shana feel about a move potentially on Sam Gaskell? The answer is no. He stays behind the Lamborghini driver for the time being. But of course, these are quick lap times coming in from the likes right now of Teemu Karppinen. Fresh rubber on board the Bentley, and he is leaving nothing on the table. He's got to be careful about track limits, Mr. Carpet. Let's keep it on the black stuff. So easy around this circuit. 11.5 minutes of the pit window left to go. And now, Aidan Walsingham making a bid towards the fight for the race win. He's been stuck behind Leon Byrne for so long, but immediately upon being released, is putting all sorts of pressure on Grant Korekis, who does now seem to be struggling just a little bit for pace, and this could seriously be game on here towards turn 1 if Aidan Walsingham gets a good exit. We'll go on board with the Mustang. The acceleration, there we go. The advantage already starting to build slowly but surely. Then we'll really start to rocket towards Korekis. Korekis knows that he has to go defensive. Oh, that was a little bit on the aggressive side. He can't get away with doing that too many times. That was very, very close. Slamming the door on Walsingham just before the entry. And that could have been a big, big disastrous moment. These guys, they do have those proximity arrows on their HUD that will give them a little bit of an extra idea as to where each car is relative to one another. But sometimes, rubber banding can happen. Everything can be a bit tricky. Meanwhile, we've got Carter to avoid setting the fastest lap and not notifying anyone in front. So Carpenter, big tactics coming in from Mr. Carpet indeed. But look at this, the fight between these guys, and Boothby surely has to think about the opportunity here for an undercut strategy, because Walsingham, he's making these guys squabble, and correct, they're going to start losing time. If he stays in this proximity onto the start-finish straight, Walsingham and Korekis could very easily end up side by side in towards turn 1. And if they are, that's a perfect opportunity for Boothby to go for the undercut. We're looking at a half a second, 0.6 of a second per lap advantage. Karppinen has undercut his way past Philip Menard now, up into P18 for the number 10 car. Does anyone come into the pits? And the answer is no from these guys, but George Boothby is in. He has thought about it, and Eric Del Fanta is going to follow him in as well. Del Fanta closing the gap, actually, in the closing stages of that first stint. Remember, he is, whilst he's kind of a little bit of a hidden hero, as he got very close at the front there. And Leah and Aidan Walsingham actually had to back out of that one. It's working perfectly for keeping these guys into a squabble for George Boothby. But Eric Del Fanta, now keep in mind, he's a championship contender as well. He's P4 in the standings at the moment. Just 70 points behind Philip Menard for P3. A few hundred points away from the likes of Hoban and Boothby. But he is certainly in the mix of anything can happen in these final rounds of the season. And it's all about banking in these points when it matters most. Meanwhile, Walsingham, Karekas, Burnt, still squabbling away. Will Carpenter undercut Boothby? I'd be very surprised. Surely not. George Boothby, wheels down as it stands at the moment. Here comes Carpenter then. So, are we about to see the chat go wild for the undercut of the century? I'm not sure we are. It's going to be very close. Closer than I thought it would have been, to be fair. Boothby is out of pit lane. So is Delfanta. Delfanta gets undercut by Teemu Karppinen. So there we go then. Teemu Karppinen might have undercut his way in towards a fight for the podium positions because these guys are still scrapping away. Does anyone respond? Correct, they all respond. They have to respond. Karekas, Walsinger, Burnt, all into the pits. Huben into the pits as well. I think he's brought someone else in as well. Fancy Barrier, everyone dives on in. And George Boothby is trying to now dial in the best outlap of his life. Frey squabbling for position with Stubenrauch, but it's all about this man right now. Carpenter not too far behind as well. They all probably all got undercut by Teemu and Boothby. I'm not sure the advantage for just one lap for George Boothby is enough. I mean, even if he's doing an equivalent pace of a 29.8, you know, those guys up in front, they were still 7/10. So he'll be right there. He'll be right there in the thick of the action. It could be side by side with at least one car by the time they get to the exit of the pit lane. May even be his teammate. I'm not sure, though, if it'll be quite enough in order for him to get to the front of the pack. But with a one-lap tyre offset as well and good race pace, it certainly looks to me like this could be a fantastic strategic move. So, how's it all going to play out there? There we go, wheels down. You can see Leon Burns on the move. They're all making their way towards pit exit. There they all are. And as George Boothby comes flying on down towards turn one, how many does he get? He gets one. He's past Leon Burns. He's past his teammate. And he's into P2. Teemu Karppinen slots behind Leon Burns there. And Aidan Walsinger flashing his lights and says, go on, my son. Chase after that race win and the first win of the season. And meanwhile, think of the championship here. Delfanta, Huben, despite those other positions of Philomena and Luke Whitehead side by side on the way in and out of turn two. Luke Whitehead has the nose cut across the front of his Porsche. Loses out there to the South African. Is trying to minimize damage in the championship because he will be losing considerable points over Delfanta as it stands at the moment. But for George Boothby, this is an absolute dream. He has Walsingham, Burnt and Karppinen, all with that, who don't have a championship to think about. He's got his teammate as a bolster behind him and multiple cars until his next championship arrivals. And even then, it's the one that poses less of a threat. So Boothby, undercut, having worked beautifully. You can never rule this man out of a race victory. He started P6. He is now just 7/10 of a second behind Grantas Karekas. And we know how good the straight line speed is of this Mustang. Karekas was coming under pressure from the other Veloce Mustang just a couple of laps ago. And look at this, even Leon Burnt under pressure from Karppinen, who I imagine isn't quite the rocket ship he was at Paul Ricard, but he's enough to pose a threat in towards turn one. He's trying to go all the way around the outside. Surely you can't make that one work. He's squeezed a little bit off the road. Oh, aggressive stuff there. Leon Burnt was not giving him the space to come back on track. Will there be words said by the stewards for that one, or was that all fair game? But Karppinen applying the pressure. That's a huge slide for Karppinen. How does he keep that one all together? Tokyo drift style in towards turn number 4. You saw the amount of steering lock, and now he's under pressure from the Honda and the Aston Martin behind. They have fresher tyres. That Bentley, he's got to be careful. The Bentley, he's gone early and will not hold on to these tyres as well as those behind, especially if he has any more moments like that. That was a huge slide from the Bentley driver, but he manages to just about keep it all together. Only 4 and a bit minutes of pit window time left to go. Most cars have come in. It is only Campanella, Leighton, Schade and Proel now who is exiting the pits. Carpet, please, no more Suzuka slide. Well, he's lasted longer than he did at Suzuka. In fairness, my God, he's just having the time of his life with that car. I must admit, when yours truly was racing on ACC, it's part of my reason for my pure love affair for this car. Not only do I just think it's a redonkulous car in the first place, I love the thing to bits, but it drives like a messy handful. It is hardcore and pure, and I absolutely adore it. The tyres are dead, cataclysmically, without a shadow of a doubt, but it's really quite funny to drive, and that's all you need as a sim racer sometimes, to put a smile on your face. In towards turn 2 they go. Aston Martin applying the pressure. And in actual fact, by the looks of it, tyres still actually okay for Teemu Carpenter. So even lighting up the rears, sliding his way in towards turn 4. But he's keeping them at least enough under control to not pose too much of a threat. Those cool temperatures for today helping him out. Meanwhile, 30 minutes of in from now. Looks like we don't have any rain on the way, so it looks like it may be dry for the entirety of this race, but that doesn't mean that we are any more short of action. George Boothby still locked onto the rear of Grant Carreras, who leads the way then. Campanella and Leighton then come into the pits. It's just Shada staying out at this time as well. As yes, Pranav probably taking in quite the gasp of air as he watched his winner from last week absolutely send it into that turn. A bit more sideways than he probably would have been hoping for the newly liveried Bentley. Meanwhile, look at this. George Boothby, as Grant Carreras actually sets the fastest lap of the race, only by a few hundredths of a second. But the Mustang, it closes 0.4 of a second down the start finish straight alone. And the race pace is very good with this Mustang. These Ferraris, they seem to just be taking a little bit too much out of their tyres in terms of where they're strong around the circuit. Meanwhile, Carpenter and Del Fanta, Huben battling away. Del Fanta, does he think about a move up the inside? He's got a championship to think about as well, because he's trying to close that gap to Philip Manara. It's a great opportunity for the Italian driver who won the opening round of the season to close the gap to the South African. Grant Carreras, the fast lap of the race by 0.02 of a second, snatches that accolade away from Teemu Carpenter. It doesn't count for anything than pride in the Pro Series. But Carreras, can he make it pole? Can he make it a pole, fastest lap, and race a win all in one go? Effectively having led every lap of this race so far as well. But if he's going to do it, it's going to be his old teammates applying the pressure onto his gearbox all the way to the finish line, as is Nicholas Huben to the back of Eric Del Fanta. Awkward lines for some cars through there. George Boothby dropping back a little bit on that last lap, actually losing, well, I say losing pace. He's lost a half a tenth of a second to Grant Carreras, and it's Walsingham now. It's on the move, a 29.655, quarter of a second quicker than anyone up ahead. Shada still staying out, so he will come in on the final lap of the race, as Michael Frey is going to be under pressure, I believe, from Stubenrauch here. That Mustang is surely going to have the legs to close his way in towards turn 1. What was that? There's so much contact, and again! Oh my goodness, no, no, no. And that is Stubenrauch taking the exit that we thought might happen for Aidan Walsingham. And, well, I mean, unfortunately, for reliability purposes of this stream, I can't show a replay, but at least from the angle that I had there, that felt like that was a pretty clear-cut incident, and I would not be surprised if there's a penalty heading the way of the Swiss driver. I don't think there's really anything that Stubenrauch could have been done there. And, yeah, hit not once, but twice. And once talking about contact, Del Fanta has sent it in from downtown, and a kick of oversteer for the Bentley on the exit as well. Shada has just about made it into the pits to answer that question. He barely made it by the skin of his teeth. Huben comes on through as well, and now the undercut for Carpenter that made him gain so many positions. Unfortunately, now only benefits him just by one, and he's got to watch out for Valentin Barrier as this race progresses. But Huben then managing to make his way past. Can he make his way past the Honda up in front? does start to close in the slipstream. Through turn 1 they go then. A little bit wide for Del Fanta, the Aston Martin. Unable to do anything. Well, this, Luke Whitehead and Philip Menard squabbling away as well. Luke Whitehead rapid in the corners, extracting everything he can from this Porsche. It's a car that's often been so quick in the past here in the Case King Pro Series, and in the hands of this man very regularly as well. You can see he's almost pushing Menard along as they make their way through the middle sector. A bit of damage on board the front end of Luke Whitehead, but just unable to make his way past. And the raw power of this Mustang is just so formidable. Unable to find an opportunity this time around, but he'll still hunt and lurk up until a mistake, a gap is opened, an opportunity is carved, and Luke Whitehead trying to find a way into the top 10. He's up 1 place. Mar up 6 places. 8 places gained for Sasha Vasta further down the order. So some fantastic moves from people in the field. As also Nicholas Hubin again applying the pressure to Del Fanta. And this is somewhat important in the championship. He'll be a lot more concerned about Boothby being up in P2 as it stands, but these are still valuable points because you never know what might quite happen. Marco Bischoff also trying to go around the outside of his teammate Noah Reeder in towards the final turn. He can't make it stick. He'll have to go for the over and under. Hubin unable to apply the pressure there, and now Marco Bischoff does manage to get the over and under done. These guys giving each other, I think, significantly more space than we saw from cars not too long ago, and Marco Bischoff uses that additional experience and it gets the job done. Has to scrub off a little bit of speed on the exit to not get a track limit penalty, but that is P12 for the Mustang. Meanwhile, fights heating up further down the order, and Boothby reigniting the pressure onto the back of Grant Carreras. Was a 1/10 of a second up last time around on the car ahead. Walsingham losing just a few tenths, not the best lap from him. These guys, they're pretty safe from Leon, but now Leon, I think, was fundamentally, he was able to reel in, or was able to stick with the pace of Grant Carreras using that slipstream. I think around here you're probably looking at maybe 0.3 of a second, something like that, of an advantage. And he's got good pace. He's matching these guys, but it's just, yeah, now that he's outside of that train, slipstream not on the fortune of the number 16 car. I just don't see him being able to reel in these three unless shenanigans kicks off, and who knows, because we have 13 minutes of action left to go. It could all be a very fiery display of battling. If you have enjoyed this incredible evening of action so far, please do consider giving the channel a follow. Thank you everybody so much for all the amazing support. We've smashed the milestone for the evening, but we'd love to keep it going as we head into the final quarter of the season. The Pro Series has been delivering buckets of action every single week that we have been going racing. And I think this just says, once again, that we are going to be looking forward to that to the remainder of the season. Carreras, Boothby, Walsingham, Burns, your top 4 from today, looking to make it 9 different winners in as many races. Could we even keep that going all the way to the end of the season? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, Alfati trying to recover his way up through the order. He's done a fantastic way to regain so many positions, and now it's Noah Reeder he's applying the pressure to. He's had a terrible lap. He's lost 2 seconds to his teammates on the back of the Mustang, who's made a big mistake there, and the BMW slices his way across in front before they get to turn 7. And the number 20 car, impressive recovery, has managed to get his head back down again. He was all the way towards the back end of the grid. He's up to P13 now for the BMW driver, and great stuff from him. Marco Schada and Stuben Rauch, I think, doing some swapping of positions as well. And Amir's real name is Tommy Lydon. Now, I know a Tommy Lydon. Now I can't tell if that's a real thing or not. Because I do recall a Tommy Lydon, but I have oh, I see. Hang on a minute. I can start to see where this is going. Okay, things are now starting to all make sense in Mr. Commentator's head, I think. Yes, I'm now. Yeah, the picture is becoming evidently clearer. We will turn our attention back towards the likes of George Boothby up in front. 0.4 of a second is the gap to Grantis Carreras, as he continues to bring his teammate along with him. Vincent Proel and Sasha Vassa very close as well on the run towards turn 1. Does Sasha Vassa think about move up towards the inside? The answer for the time being is no for the Aston Martin driver, but he will continue to sustain the pressure. Florian Duakop as well. Noah Reeder is absolutely plummeting down the order as it stands. He did a 32.8 last time around. He's going to lose the position again. What is happening to the Team Nitro car? We'll go on board with the Mustang. Oh, and there's contact. And Florian Duakop off on the gravel. And I think he's going to allow the Honda come by. You can hear that rather miserable sounding lawnmower on the right-hand side indicator applied. Does Noah Reeder have a puncture? I can't see how. I'd be very surprised. I mean, it's not like he did anything, I think, particularly alarming in terms of the pit stop. It's very cold. I would find it hard to believe, but maybe. Meanwhile, Nicholas Huben was very close to the back of Eric Del Fanta not too long ago. Has lost a little bit of ground, but look at this battle for the lead. The two Veloce cars all over the back of their teammate. As Philip Manart and Luke Whitehead also squabbling away, but the British driver just cannot make his way on through. Final warning. I mean, that's an incredibly tentative pace to go at. I mean, he's at a 30. Okay, I know we had that contact on the last lap, but a 33.5. He did a 32 something and a 33.5. I suppose he's maybe it's pressure loss then, or no pressure loss. One of the two. Anyway, we've got 3 wide on the exit of turn 1 all of a sudden. We've got Frey, Leighton and Gaskell in towards turn 2. They go. That's Gaskell going very, very late on the brakes. Frey has a 5-second penalty for that instant with Super Rush. I must admit, I would have expected it to be just a tad more around the outside. Leighton tries to go Frey, and now that's a door opened up for Sam Gaskell behind. He's made the opportunity stick, I think. And you can still hear the Honda towards the outside is not over and done with between these guys just yet. Camera angle doesn't know where on earth it's looking. And now, in actual fact, Leighton did manage to sweep back around the outside to hold on to that one. And yes, I must admit, we only saw it from one camera angle. The stewards do have more angles to look at as well. But at least on the face of it, I must admit, especially with the consequences that incident had, I don't know. The only thing I can think of is if they've deemed any inputs from Stuben Rauch to be in response to the contact with Frey if he started to be a little bit aggressive back towards the right-hand side. But I must admit, with the move that Frey made, I would have said it was fair game at that point. That's my personal opinion, but there you go. Nicholas Huben trying to go for the over and under. We saw George Boothby make it work earlier. This is important in terms of championship points. Huben trying to minimise the damage and the deficit to Boothby today. Down the inside to turn 2, holds the inside for 3. Del Fanta can't get there for 4, and it is the German driver up into P5 and takes that one away, and now looks to try to charge his way onto the back of Leon Burton, but he is a good few seconds up the road. Meanwhile, 26 minutes of racing left to go. Vanting Barrier as well now, actually in a very strong position here to maybe make a move. Carpenter struggling now on that undercut strategy that Kylo so cruelly forced him onto, as those tyres seemingly letting go. And the Bentley, if he's not careful, might the whole rear of the car letting go underneath him as they head on through turn number 8. The Frenchman using the McLaren's strong suit of these medium high-speed corners. It's not the best in a straight line. The Bentley will be rapid, but with those tyres starting to give away, and another bouncy run through there, in through 13, down in towards 14. This is a strong braking zone for the McLaren. The McLaren tends to have this characteristic. When you slam on the brakes, it just understeers. It just goes straight. And in a long corner like that, where you need this very patient trail braking, you need the car to you need it to turn a bit, but not too much. That characteristic of the McLaren actually is quite helpful. It's very, very stable on the entry in towards the turn. Whereas the Bentley, maybe not so much. Oh my goodness, that's a little bit more than he would have bargained for. And the Carpenter has had an absolute faithful of the front split of the McLaren. I'll tell you who's going to join this one. Campanella, who's going for this overcut strategy. He might get 2 for the price of 1 here. Brownhound is going to be in shambles because his 2 teammates are going side by side, and he's got the hazard lights on as well, just for good measure. Around the outside of one, around the outside of the other, and Campanella makes it 2 for the price of 1. In towards turn 6, Campanella makes it P7, and Vanting Barrier again into the rear diffuser. He is just glued to the back of that Bentley, and he sends it from downtown. can't imagine Carpenter's going to give an awful lot of room. He's squeezing him towards the inside line as much as he can. Campanella has run away from this one. Carpenter will surely send it back down the inside. He slid his way through this turn before, and he's going to make that Bentley as wide as he possibly can. He shuts the door on the Frenchman. And that was a bit of an awkward moment, I would have to think, especially seeing as that did result in a position loss for the Bentley driver. Then surely there is a bit of a penalty coming that way. I mean, it wasn't a push to pass, but it was certainly a push to cause difficulty and lose positions kind of incident, whatever rule that falls under in the rule book. Meanwhile, Barrier is not deterred by any of that. He's continuing to apply the pressure towards turn 1, but Bentley power is too good. How's he fared through the first turn, though? Able to carry more speed. This is where it all went wrong a lap ago. Does Vancy think he's going to launch it down the inside again? He is not fair, and there's bigger contact. Oh dear. And Vancy Barrier, well, if the first one wasn't pushed to pass, I think that one certainly was. We'll have to see. Team of Carpenter temporarily goes down to P9, but I would be surprised if it stays that way for the remainder of this race. We'll keep an eye on what the stewards have to say. Meanwhile, Sasha Vasta, and it's going to get very busy here, trying to go to the inside. No reader, a 34.5. Something must be horrifically wrong with that car. I saw suggestion of a pressure loss earlier on. Maybe he did. I can only imagine the exit of turn 12. It is tricky through there, but he has nothing right now. He is tumbling down the order, and that is okay. Well, Vasta, after briefly getting the position, Shana goes on back on through. Sasha Vasta had that position, and then Shado has just sent it from downtown, taken the place back, and has now gone off up into P19. The Pro Series continuing to deliver the crazy action and busyness that we could have possibly imagined. And once again, Mr. Commentator does retract his statement about pushing for Brands Hatch. This is possibly just a little bit better. I'll hold my hands up to that one, but I still love Brands Hatch, so there's no doubt about that. Meanwhile, back towards our race leaders then. George Boothby, you can see, he's actually gapped his teammate just a little bit. A second between himself and Aidan Walsingham. And he can go full focus attack onto Karekas here. He's only a tenth of a second quicker than the Lithuanian last time around. Karekas doing a fantastic job all race long. He has pressure from Leon Burnt. Then it was Aidan Walsingham. Now it's George Boothby. And the winningest driver on the platform in your rear view mirrors is not what you need in terms of when you're trying to keep yourself calm and collected. But we know how good Karekas can be in these situations. He is a champion for a reason. He's got more championships than George Boothby has in this competition. So he knows what he's doing in that number 3 car out in front. He knows how to close out race victories. That's I don't know what he did, but he has the wrong pads on the rear. Is that a reference for Noah Reader? So for a 90-minute race, because for those that don't know, the brake pads, I believe, if memory serves correct, you can go with 4 choices. Now, you definitely don't want to go for option number 4, as that was a scary moment for Aidan Walsingham there. Option number 4, if I recall, are some deliberately fatigued brakes to be able to simulate the car for basically like a long endurance stint. So if you're trying to see how the car behaves, say 3 hours into a race without having changed the pads, you can put the set 4 on and it kind of simulates that brake fade, fundamentally. But it saves you having to do wait, pads 4 are quali pads. Has that changed then? Hang on a minute, I'm very confused now. Because I thought pads 1 was like quali super sprinty pads. Pads 2 were sort of like pads that would last you about 3 hours. Pads 3 would be something that you'd maybe change once or twice, maybe 3 times in a 24-hour race. And I thought pads 4 were deliberately faded as a simulated pad. Okay. There was some method in the madness there. Maybe it's changed a little bit. I've been out of the competitive lineup of ACC for a while. But yeah, well, whichever combination of numbers it was, they all kind of did something along those lines. So therefore, basically just refer to Fred in the chat. He's contributing some wonderful, useful information, and more so than the commentator is for that. That's admittedly a little bit of guidance wouldn't go amiss. I do agree in the garage to indicate all of that. Meanwhile, we will head on back to the fight for P16. It's Frey versus Gaskell. These guys have had some action, and the number 9 car unable to make his way past on this occasion. And lovely stuff, Fred. And also a big thank you, of course, to you for all of your amazing efforts at coordinating all of that good stuff. Sam Gaskell, Visceral Esports, they've had a topsy-turvy day after some recent success. trying to get the job done in towards turn 8. Can't make it stick. We'll have to find another opportunity elsewhere. So apparently Norita is on brakes 1 and duct 2 on the rear. And now the rear is at 43% brake pad and at about 40% they are toast. That will be... Yes, I can see the trouble that he could be running into here, as much as the trouble as Grant Correcas could be finding himself in very, very shortly. The gap, 0.2 of a second by the time they made their way towards turn 2. George Boothby doesn't need too much more in order to really start sending it from downtown in order to make an opportunity happen. Fast lap of the race still with Ada Walsinger. Meanwhile, look at this fight. Gaskell now on the charge, trying to go towards the outside. Surely can't make that one stick. He hasn't got enough of an overspeed. He's not in a Mustang. It doesn't quite work like that when you're in the Raging Bull. But Michael Frey tries to cover the inside. Gaskell tries to go deeper to the inside. And look at all this. Vincent Proel trying to go all the way around the outside. Wide on the exit for Michael Frey. 2 by 2 they will go through turn 3 into 4. Who's going to come out on top of all of this one? We'll go on board with Marco Schada, who sees it all. No, he won't. He's all the way past Vincent Proel already. Gaskell and Frey side by side up ahead. Now we'll go to Schada, who's got a fantastic view of these two. The Lamborghini versus the Porsche. Lamborghini towards the outside. They give each other just enough space. Fantastic door-to-door action. And now the V10 power of the Lamborghini will roar up behind the Porsche, but so will this Honda, who will be super late on the brakes, I'm sure. Fantastic, and he may even get the pair of them on the exit. Schada with the opportunity of a century. The cameraman doesn't even know what's happening, and Schada's gone through. An incredible double overtake there. He set that one up beautifully. Apex after apex. And Schada, who went super late into the race with the overcut strategy, remember, is using those fresh tyres to beautiful effect. He manages to capitalise on all the shenanigans of these two, and he dispatches them in just a few corners. Incredible stuff from him in the Honda. Meanwhile, Marco Bischoff now being hunted down by Tommy Lydon through turn 1. They will look to go, and it will be a dive towards the outside on the brakes for the BMW. Can't make it stick there. Meanwhile, Marco Wong dispatches of Norita, who continues to be struggling further down the order. But with 17 minutes left to go on the clock, these fights are as good as they could possibly be. We've got loads of squabbles everywhere. The race lead, your top 3 separated by less than a second. Battles inside of the top 20 just as intense as those up at the front. Marco Schada, big pace advantage for him. He has got 9.6 seconds to find on Florian Duakop in front. Meanwhile, Michael Frey immediately back on the defence. And a big power slide on the exit as Sam Gaskell tries to get the traction to those rear tyres. The rear tyres do complain somewhat, and the Swiss driver will hold on to position for the time being. Luke Whitehead still applying the pressure to Philip Manar. Also, look at this. George Boothby close to the back of Grant Correcas. Any opportunity in towards turn 2. Correcas has to think about going defensive. And now this is what will start to make every opportunity that Boothby has that little bit stronger, because Correcas can't afford to over-defend here, because if he over-defends his middle sector and George Boothby is there on the start-finish straight with him on his gearbox, game over. Mustang straight line speed will have that one dispatched out of the way very, very quickly. So he's got to be so careful here, but he's a precise driver. There's a reason why he is a champion in his own right. We'll see what he can do. Kevin Tadai now makes his way past Noah Reeder, who continues to struggle on. 4 seconds off his previous best. A frustrating day for him in the cockpit of that Mustang. Kudos, though, for him continuing to go on. And apparently he has reached 40% on the rear brakes. So that is, yeah, that's going to be a time in the Mustang. And it's not exactly a car that slows down easily in the first place. So it'll be certainly an interesting one. Meanwhile, closing stages of the race then. We keep an eye on the fight amongst this top 3. And look at this, George Boothby within 0.3 of a second by the time they get to turn 14. He puts the power down on the exit. Is this enough to surmount a challenge, or at least probe the defence out of Correcas, because the speed really starts to snowball? Correcas surely has to think about going defensive, but he holds his nerve. Boothby tries to fake the attempt, and he's got a fantastic run out of turn 1. Correcas definitely has to be towards the inside line now, but he positions the car perfectly. Boothby will have to wait for another opportunity, and bearing in mind, Correcas does have the better tyres, only by a single lap. But the Ferrari also tends to hold on to its tyres a little bit more strongly. 14.5 minutes on the clock left to go. About 9 laps of racing action-packed goodness to see us to the end of the 9th round of the championship. Right now looking like it is going to be a 9th different winner, and unless George Boothby can find a way past Grant Carecas, could still be without his first race win of the season, despite what is becoming an increasingly dominant championship campaign from the number 1 car. See, desperately trying to find any opportunity, chopping and changing different lines, and apparently Noah Rita has actually given up on those brake pads and has decided to get a new set on board. Difficult sector there for George Boothby. You can see lost a chunk of time to Grant Carecas there. I saw the lights flashing there from Aidan Walsingham. I don't imagine that these two are going to swap positions. Aidan, I think, knows the championship situation, but at the same time, Aidan Walsingham, he is firmly in the fight as well. He's P5 as it stands at the moment. He's 300 points away from Del Fanta and Philip Menard, but you know he's helped out the likes of George a good few times now. So anything that gives him an opportunity to gain over his rivals, I'm sure he'll be very much looking to try to get and do. Del Fanta has not let go of the back of Nicholas Huben. Valentin Barron's got a 5-second penalty for that incident earlier on with Teemu Karppinen, which will see him drop behind the Bentley driver if the delta between them were to stay the same as things stand. No matter who wins from the current top 3, we'll have no different winner, absolutely. Even from the top 4 is just absolutely extraordinary. Your next winner on the grid from this season is Nicholas Huben, and he's got a squabble with our season opener winner, Eric Del Fanta. And these two, bearing in mind, they're not a million miles away from each other in the championship. Huben wants to minimise damage of what he loses to George Boothby today. Eric Del Fanta wants to gain as much as he can over Philip Menard, who is... Where is Philip Menard? I don't think Philip Menard is even in the server anymore. What has happened to the South African driver? But either way, that is going to be a big points haul and advantage to the Italian man that we are on board with at the moment, and could see Philip Menard's campaign for those top 3 spots a little bit tricky heading into the final rounds of the season. You run out of opportunity to kind of compensate for any difficulties that you have at other points. You know, we saw Luke Whitehead come out as a 2-time Pro Series champion, went into last season, was certainly, one of the favourites you would have put money on. First few races, absolute disaster for the British driver, and that was it. Championship campaign over. No chance to defend the title after an opener like that, and that's as quickly as it can go. It can go wrong that quickly. There are, of course, drop scores in this championship, which do help offset that situation. But the problem is that then if you do have a couple of bad rounds, you have some no scores, some no shows, things like that. Those drop scores, you lose the opportunity to really make use of them again. That's it. And so you do need to just try to, as consistently as you can, deliver those performances. And George Boothby, so far this season, has very much done that and is continuing to put himself in an ever-commanding spot into those final rounds. He's usually gone into the final rounds with work to do. This time around, he's putting the pressure onto those around him. We saw Castorino last season have a ridiculous streak of podium finishes towards his championship winning campaign, and it left Boothby with an awful lot to do in the final stage. It was mathematically possible for him to do it, but he had to push awfully hard, and in the end, the Italian, who had been so consistent across the season, did enough to take his first championship in the Case King Pro Series. And whilst he took the race win out at round number 2 of the season, we haven't had him for the rest of the season. It'd be great to have him back, hopefully, in due course, and see if he can be another 2-time Pro Series champion of that very, very niche group on accolades for drivers here. Marco Bischoff and Luke Whitehead, of course, the only two to have done it. George Boothby, though, still hunting his first title in the Pro Series and his first win of the season. 10 minutes left to go. Nothing's going to be changing in terms of weather. Nothing's going to be changing in terms of strategy. All those elements. This is a pure out-and-out fight to the end. Also, Leon Burnt has rediscovered a little bit of pace. He's actually gaining just a smidge on these guys in the background, so they can't battle too intensely. Otherwise, they'll have a rather disgruntled German who dropped out of this fight after being in P2 for so long. Dropped out of this fight. And I'm sure we'll be looking to try to kick things off, send some fireworks at the end of the race if he can. But he's got some work to do yet if he is going to be in that position. Korekis again, wider through the exit of 12, but the 296 seems to be dealing with it well. Set up very sensitive corners like that. You do get that at certain circuits where you really have to set up the car to be good in one particular spot. It can be such a pivotal corner, whether it's to make it comfortable enough so that you can avoid having to be too concerned about track limit penalties, or just to get yourself in a good spot so that you can make an overtake happen from the exit. Wide again through turn 1, but not enough pressure from behind from George Boothby, who is still looking ever so menacing in that Mustang. Hurried all the way by his teammate Aidan Walsingham as things stand at the moment, with just 8 laps of racing left to go. 90 minutes of action has absolutely, 82 minutes of action has absolutely flown by since the beginning of this race. Chaos from the very beginning. And it is looking like it's going to go that way all the way to the end of this one. And I wouldn't have it any other way. This is why we love the Case King Pro Series. It is like this every single time we go racing. Sam Gaskell and Michael Frey are still squabbling for positions down here for P15. These battles rage on. But Frey drifts his way out of turn 2. And we'll have to force a hand of Gaskell to find an opportunity elsewhere. Del Fanta unable to make his way past. That's another big slide for Michael Frey. And side by side in towards the next left-hander. They will go squeezed out on the exit. I think, considering the nature of that curb, all fair game. They have got to be a little bit careful, though. They are being closed up on behind by the likes of Vincent Proel, Sasha Vassner as well, to join the party. But I need to turn my attention towards our leaders. Because, oh my goodness, he actually had to get on the brakes. Korekis took such a tight line through turn 1 that Boothby had to slam on the brakes. So did Walsingham. And I'll tell you what, Walsingham, if it wasn't George Boothby that was in front of him, Walsingham would have been going for that, sending it, because I think he would have had the run. And would have tried to go for a double overtake in towards turn 2. But for the sake of his teammate and the championship, he's let that one go. But my goodness, that was an ever so close position for Boothby, and Korekis a little bit on the edge there. He's in his right. He's at that point, he's not got anyone alongside him. He can dictate his line, but yeah, that's dicey ground when you've got moves like that. They just about all stick together, as are these drivers. As Gaskell trying to duck and dive for an opportunity, sent towards the outside line. So is Proel. Vassner up to the inside. A little bit of contact with 1, if not 2. Gonna try to take the pair of them. We'll have to see if anyone has anything to say about that. He's up 10 positions already. He's trying to make it 11. Bonk, bonk, bonk indeed. The Aston Martin. I couldn't have put it better myself, Bradbury. Around the outside they will go. Michael Frey, 5-second time penalty, although he's escaping up the road in this little shindig at the moment. Lamborghini does hold on for the time being, as that Porsche on the tail end of this pack not quite actually in this fight. Sasha Vassner has to defend from Proel, and he sets off in charge of Gaskell again as Michael Frey tries to escape up the order. Meanwhile, George Boothby now putting the pressure onto Korekis once again, but it's the same defensive move every single time. Apart from the last lap. It was the same move every single time from Korekis to hold on to this position. And just about 4 laps left to go. And it's oh so tight, in actual fact. For those 4 laps, it's going to be so marginal. If these guys do squabble and hold themselves up a little bit, it could come to an end just that little bit sooner, and Grant Korekis, I'm sure, won that. Look at this. Leon Burnt's there. Leon Burnt is practically in the thick of this action. He has gained a second over these guys on the last lap. And this fight is going to be absolutely down to the wire. Incredible battles everywhere you look up the field. Number 20 of the Tommy Lydon BMW up the inside of Marco Bischoff has forced the gap to be created. Forces the Mustang just a little bit offline, but it's not enough to deal with the power difference. Oh, that's a dive down the inside. It's an ambitious one. Marco Bischoff respects the dive, gives him the room, and Tommy Lydon then up into P11, recovering his way up through the order and managing to do just that. Meanwhile then, George Boothby will go on board as we head on down towards turn 1. Not close enough here. How brave does he feel through into turn 2? And the Ferrari's just so good there. He can't make his way past on the run, because if he gets alongside, Kurekis defends it, and he can't get enough of an overspeed to really make it stick. In actual fact, yeah, it is indeed a rather crazy recovery drive from Tommy Lydon. Fantastic stuff from him. Very, very good in that BMW. A car that was quite clearly dialed in nicely today. But meanwhile then, George Boothby trying desperately to see if there's anything that he can do about Kurekis in front, who has effectively led every single lap of this race. He was under pressure from Leon Burns. Then it changed to the hands of Aidan Walsingham, but the undercut from George Boothby got the championship lead of a number 1 car in the server into the fight and the action. And now with just a couple of laps left to go, the opportunities for the man who is chasing his first win of the season as the winningest driver on the platform, has a championship to think about though. Remember, he's trying to hunt down his ex-teammate. Any one of these top 4 would be looking to make it 9 different winners in as many races, which is just ridiculous when you consider it. It just goes to show how the Pro Series continues to deliver. And we will have 2 more laps left to go. The Mustang rockets its way towards turn 1. Unable to get close enough, though, for an opportunity. Kurekis doesn't go defensive this time around. He's being mindful of making sure he doesn't over-defend. That's where the problems will kick in. If he does that, like I said earlier, it is game over. But fantastic fight here amongst your top 3. Squabbles as well further down the order. 4 cars almost nose to tail. Frey, Gaskell, Vassner, Proel. Gaskell will try to sweep around the outside, maybe get a good exit and a run down towards turn 1. Proel on the charge, actually trying to fight his way back past Sasha Vassner, but unable to do so on this occasion. But less and less opportunities are being made available for George Boothby to get into the race lead. It'll still be a great day in terms of a championship situation to go for points, and there's a wiggle and a half from Gaskell around the outside. He will try to go. Frey shuts the door, and he'll have to try to find opportunity elsewhere. Meanwhile, Boothby, Walsingham and Burns, who's only half a second behind. And in actual fact, Walsingham could even be in trouble in the closing stages of this race. This is effectively going to be the last opportunity, because I don't think they're quite going to get 2 laps left as they cross the line. They won't. It's going to be mightily close, but Kurekis then only has to defend this run for one last time, heading towards turn 1. The Mustang of Boothby is slightly too far away for an opportunity. He needs a mega run through turn 2. He hasn't got the run. Kurekis doesn't even need to defend this time around. And if he just keeps it all together, smooth, neat and tidy, as he has done for so much of this race, that's all he needs to deliver in the closing stages of this race. Del Fanta still applying the pressure to the back of Nicholas Huben. Sam Gaskell, Vassner, Proel, Frey, all still squabbling away. But it's all eyes on this. The fight for the race lead, as it is as tight as it was at the very beginning of this race. Your top 4 all trying to go for first bit of top set glory of the season, and there's only a second and a half that separates the first to the 4th car in this train. Grant Kurekis then comes into turn 8. Another opportunity gone for George Boothby. They are becoming less and less, few and far between, and Kurekis now he's in the place where the Ferrari is strong, the middle sector, where if he hooks up the corners right, he can carry good speed, he can open up the gap. Leon Burnt closing to the rear diffuser of Aidan Walsingham. Sam Gaskell has again tries to mount the opportunity a pass onto Michael Frey, but he's denied that route. Correca's come through 12. They jump over the cars. Once again, it's a mistake from George Boothby, and I think that might be everything settled and done in terms of the challenge. And despite all the things that were thrown at him in this race, strategically, pressure from cars to cars, it'll be a drag race in the background, but it'll be a race win for Grantas Correcas once again. Boothby P2, and by a tenth of a second, Walsingham holds on to P3. Absolutely fantastic stuff. And in 9 races, it's 9 different winners, and it's Grantas Correcas who, for the first time in a good couple of seasons, returns to the top step of the podium once again. Meanwhile, look at this squabble all the way to the end. Michael Frey squealing the rear tyres out to turn 11. He'll have Gaskell trying to get a good run through 12. Vassner applying the pressure as well. It'll be a drag race all of its own towards the line. And would you believe it, even further down the order, we'd have racing like this after 90 minutes. They're all trying to go one way or the other. Throughout down the inside of Vassner. Vassner will get the run on the exit. He should be safe. And I think Michael Frey will hold on to the position on track. He will have a 5-second penalty, but will drop him down. An incredible battle all the way to the end. Kevin Tadai will end up going into 20th position behind Marco Wong as your final cars head towards the finish line. I think it's only Alexandra Tichnos that will be the last across the line. But Grantas Correcas celebrating, understandably so, an immensely composed and fantastic drive. One that is an absolute testament to his champion status. It's been a while since we've seen the Lithuanian rise to the top step of the podium, but it almost comes as no surprise that under that level of pressure, with a top speed deficit versus that Mustang from behind of Walsingham and then George Boothby, there's not many drivers that would be able to keep cars like that behind, but Grantas Correcas has done just that. An incredible drive from him. We'll hopefully have him in for an interview shortly and speak to your drivers from this evening. What an incredibly busy race from everybody, and that has been absolutely mind-blowing. We do have your podium finishes for the evening. We'll start to bring them in bit by bit and see exactly how they are feeling after that incredible race from tonight, because it was a busy one no matter where you were in the field. And so finishing P3 after that topsy-turvy race, Aidan Walsingham, a drag race to the line between you and Leon Burt to really just keep things interesting all the way to the final meters. An incredibly tightly fought battle between all 4 of you. That race, a draining one, I imagine, but a fantastic podium. How are you feeling after that one?
Exhausted, to be honest. Yeah, you put it very well. It's very draining, that race. Very hard to get the slightest advantage, and Grantas and Leon both drove borderline perfectly the entire race. I can count on one hand the mistakes both of them made, and it's just, impossible to actually overtake them. So, no, they both did a fantastic job. Really great race from them both.
Yeah, they did make very few errors, but the one error that Leon Burnt made, for example, you were straight there to pounce and attack. Was it a move that you kind of felt like you could line up from the laps prior, or was it just that opportunistic instinct of, there's a gap, I'm close enough, I'm going for it?
The only place we were faster was out of the last corner and out of turn 1. Everywhere else, the 296 was pulling away from us. Like, we couldn't get a run at all. And that's the thing we've become accustomed to with the Mustang is, I mean, you'll see from every race, we have so much speed in this car, but it's not the best in the corners. And Valencia has not a lot of high speed and rather a lot of corners. So we just have to, capitalize on that. We get a slight opening on the start-finish straight. We have to commit to it. Obviously, almost had Grantas before the pit stops, but I was a bit confused by his defense, and I just didn't want to chance taking him out. He moved to the inside, and then I couldn't see him all of a sudden, and I thought, nah, I'm going to play this safe. Let's just slow down and survive.
Yeah, we saw plenty of shenanigans at turn one from time to time elsewhere in the field. So I think a wise move of being able to then consolidate what would become a very good P3 finish for you. And in terms of championship situation, yourself, Kareka, is actually very, very close coming into this race and sort of knocking on the door of the likes of Philip Menard, Eric Del Fanta for that P3 spot in the championship, which is starting to become a really intense fight with just a few races to go. It's going to be so interesting to see how that comes together. We'll be heading to Imola for next week. Of course, there is a whopping great high-speed straight there where the Mustang may have, I would suspect, a pretty good run in towards, I think it was officially turn 2 for that one. Do you think that could present some good opportunities for you again to challenge for the race win? What's the feelings going into that one?
I mean, I've hated every single Imola race I've ever done.
That's a good start.
Yeah. I'd love to enjoy the race, that's for sure. But I have to. I don't know. I get into a bad mindset with Imola, but this time I'm gonna have to learn to love it because otherwise I've got no chance in catching Philip in the standings. Yeah, but the Mustang's gonna be great there. So.
Fantastic. Yeah, use that as the positive to continue this momentum into that one and perhaps surprise yourself. Maybe season 15 is the time, Aidan, for Imola being one that's on your lucky sheet of tracks for you. I'm sure it will be a mind-blowing race in the same way that tonight has been. Aidan, big congratulations to you for a fantastic evening of action and for putting on such a brilliant show and coming away with that P3 finish, and for joining us for an interview, and look forward to seeing how you get on next week.
Cheers, Sean. Thanks as always.
Take care, Aidan.
Bye.
Fantastic stuff there from the man that finished in P3. An incredible evening of action, without a shadow of a doubt. It was just so good from start to finish, and they managed to make it stick. Meanwhile, we'll bring in the man that gave it his all in the closing stages of that race, trying to apply all sorts of pressure to Grant Karekas, who just would not budge. It got close at times, but just not quite enough. Buffy coming home with P2. George, you must be feeling, I imagine, about as drained as Aidan sounded speaking to him just a moment ago, but still chuffed to go from P6 to P2 and get some really good championship points.
Yeah, it was awesome because I was behind all my championship rivals, and at this point in the championship, I don't really care where I finish as long as I'm ahead of them. So I can't believe I was able to overtake both of them on the first few laps. I don't know how long it took, but at least the first stint, I managed to get back to both of them and then close up to the front, did a bit of an undercut, and that worked. And yeah, it was just a really good race. I really wanted to try and get that top spot from Grantas, and I had like one or two little moves where maybe something could have happened, but he was just so good. He was so smart how he defended. So yeah, I'll take P2. Good points.
Yeah, I think the moment that got the most, at least, made me jump up a little bit in the chair is a bit of a concern. I'm not sure quite how it felt inside the cockpit of your Mustang, but running through turn 1, where I think Karekas, I don't know if he got on the brakes at all, like immediately on the exit of the apex, but certainly held an extremely tight line towards the inside, which seemed to kind of catch you out, and then Aidan was sort of snowballing up behind you. It got so busy. How difficult is it when you're in those moments fighting, for so much, but with such fine margins between glory and disaster, to stay aware of all of your surroundings and keep it all composed together?
I mean, it depends on who you're fighting, and the good thing about LFM Pro Series is like almost everyone knows what they're doing, and you can put trust in them. So Grant has put trust in me, to not just ram him, and I knew I saw what he was doing, so I knew if I keep the throttle down, I'm just gonna kill him. So he did a really good defensive move, and you got to respect it.
Yeah, absolutely. He lap after lap, you tried so many different routes, but he did position that Ferrari perfect. I don't think I've seen many Ferraris wider than that since probably one of your drives actually at Brands Hatch, which we almost visited this week a few seasons ago. That's a defensive masterclass from Grantas, and like you say, some immense points for the championship over all of your rivals after a qualifying that maybe looked to make things a little bit tricky for these final 3 races of the season. heading to Imola. Aiden, it's fair to say, did not respond positively to the idea of heading to Imola. Not exactly one of his favourite circuits. It's a circuit that you definitely had success at in the past. What's the sort of thoughts and feelings heading into that one for next week?
I absolutely love Imola, so bring it on. I'm going to absolutely send it and hopefully get a good result.
Fantastic. That's the sort of confidence that we love to hear. And whilst it has been a crazy start of the season with the amount of different winners we have had, and an unusual winless streak, still incredible consistency for your championship campaign, but an unusual time for you to go without a win. Maybe Imola next week. Maybe that's the lucky track to see all of that change. George, big congratulations on a fantastic drive this evening and all of that fantastic action that we got to see and be treated to, and with that P2 finish, and we look forward to seeing how you get on at Imola next week.
Thank you, man. Cheers. Take care.
Take care, George. Great stuff to talk to tonight's race P2 finisher. Almost jumped the gun there. But we will now bring in the race winner, a man that put on a masterclass in defense, led effectively every single lap, and was just unflappable even under the most incredible of pressure. Grantus, welcome back to the top step of the podium. You're the 9th different winner of this crazy action-packed season, and a race to, I think, summarize that absolutely to the maximum. It was hectic, it was beautiful, it was wonderful. You must be knackered, but I imagine overjoyed with that result.
Yeah, thanks very much. It's been a long time since I've been on the podium in this series. Obviously, before 2 seasons I didn't participate, but finally I'm back, and yeah, what a win. Actually, I absolutely did not expect this win. Like, I barely practiced for this race, and qualifying was a bit lucky for me. Did a very good lap in the damp conditions, and then I just drove in the race. I just no mistakes, tried to do as least mistakes as possible, and just try and somehow bring it home, even though Mustangs were completely like insane and they were so freaking fast, but I somehow did it, and I can't believe it, and I'm really proud of myself after this win.
Absolutely, you certainly should be, and we'll talk about a bit more about the race in a second. But start off with qualifying, because that was that was about as much of a dramatic and action-packed session as the race was. Is known, obviously, starting with damp conditions, the track getting faster and faster, and sort of really needing to count about where you were positioned on track to start that final lap. How difficult is it to hook up a lap around here, and then under that additional pressure, knowing that this is the lap that realistically you need to do it on, because the track is at its best. It's not going to get better than this, and you're at the death of it. How tricky is that to do?
Yeah, it's honestly very tricky. I think it's like the trickiest qual you could ever have, honestly. Obviously, going before this race, into this race, everyone thought it's going to be dry, so obviously nobody prepared, so that's what made it even tougher. And when we started the quali, we saw it's damp conditions and we were on wet tires, so it was really tough, knowing that final lap is always going to be the fastest. So actually in the first part of the quali was lost for half of the quali until the last 2 laps. So it was a huge amount of pressure from my side especially, but I don't know, I just somehow did it, and I'm really happy.
Absolutely, yeah. A brilliant lap that was hooked up by you to get that pole position, and of course, under pressure in the first part of the race by Leon in the fellow Ferrari. Then it was Aiden in the first of the Mustangs. Then George in the final stint, especially that final stint. You've got 2 Veloce Mustangs behind you, of course, 2 drivers that you know very well. And as George was just saying, he could put trust in you, you put trust in him, and it made for such an immense fight. But how tricky was it to try to position your car so precisely lap after lap, where you couldn't over defend at any point, especially in the middle sector, because that was where you were stronger. That's where you then needed to try to extend the gap, and try to do that lap after lap, knowing the straight line speed of the Mustangs. How do you keep yourself in a mindset of being able to not make those mistakes when you got that much pressure from cars behind?
Well, obviously experience does a lot in these sort of situations, but of course, we have to focus. There's no point of complaining, especially when the Ford is that fast in the straight. So you have to be 4 tenths ahead after the last Kuna. So if they wouldn't get a run on you into turn 1, so that was always very tough, and always had that in mind that I have to pull away in the middle sector. And you just have to keep it cool and just focus on your lines. Don't look at the mirror, and just do your race. And that's how it worked for me, and it absolutely worked.
It worked beautifully indeed. Yeah, granted, it was such an incredible race to watch, so much action, and a fantastic demonstration for anyone at home watching about, what special performance can you hook together when you're dialed in and you don't make a single mistake, and you're able to withstand that pressure from behind. It was absolutely fantastic to watch. We'll be heading to Imola next week. Now, we've had contrasting opinions so far from Aiden and George. Aiden was very much along the lines of absolutely detesting Imola to its core. George, very excited and very happy. Are you somewhere in between? Are you closer to one end of the scale than the other? How are you feeling for next week?
I think I'm closer to being a bit more negative for this one. Of course, it makes sense that Mustangs want Imola, and they can't wait for that because there's a lot of curbs and there's a long straight, and yeah, it just really suits the car. So, and Ferrari, it's completely the opposite. So, yeah, it will be very interesting. Obviously, I love the track a lot. I had some great history here in Pro Series before. But yeah, unfortunately, I'm in a different car now, and this will be very tough. But I will try to practice more this time, and we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. Well, you've been able to deliver incredible performance tonight, even relatively little practice, so who knows what Imola could bring. The Case King Pro Series, it's a wild ride every time we go racing, so you can never rule yourself out of the equation, being the talent that you are and the champion that you are in this series from a few seasons ago. Grantus, what an amazing evening of action from you. Thank you so much for coming in for an interview and putting on such an incredible show for everybody watching. Congrats to you, and also best of luck next week to Imola.
Thank you very much. Good luck for you, and see you next time.
Thanks a lot, Grantus. Take care.
Until then.
Great stuff then from Grantus Carecas, taking his first victory in a while, and his first victory in the Pro Series, of course, since he has joined the Scuderia Ferrari esports team. What a way to do it. And it's just, again, astonishing statistics. A 9th different winner in as many races. We have never had something like that. We have had battles between two main rivals. We've had dominance from individuals in this series. We've had some topsy-turvy moments between cars in the opening few races, but we're in the final quarter. We've got 3 races to go, and we have not had a single repeat winner, and the championship leader hasn't won a single race. It's feeling a little bit like how Formula 3 started to go this year, if anyone saw that in some of the title decider, and eventually the champion there didn't win a race, even by the time they got to the finale, and that was a crazy action-packed one as well, so who knows, it could go down to the wire just like that, but one way or another, I have no doubt that this championship is going to continue to deliver bucket loads of immensely crazy action. We will have a look at the race results tonight after that incredible evening of LFM Pro Series goodness. And there you go, Carecas, Boothby and Walsingham rounding out your podium, and it was only by a single tenth of a second for Leon Burns, who just missed the mark at the end. Huben, Delfanta, Campanella, Karpinen, Whitehead, Barrier, Leiden, Bischoff, Duakop, Schade and Gaskell making up your top 15. Someone there was getting 9 positions. I think Sasha Vassner, your biggest mover, with 11 positions gained for him. And then Proel, Frey, Wong, Tadai, and Tichnos, your final finishers on the lead lap, with Ida, Leighton, and Kufal a bit off the lead lap, with then Manar, Supermatch, Gamble, Foch, and Steyer, your last drivers, who unfortunately ended up DNFing from this race. So went to show exactly how tricky the evening of racing was for these guys on such an immensely busy circuit that delivered the action in absolute buckets loads. And I can give you a little bit of an idea of the championship situation as well, in terms of how all of that plays out. George Boothby extends his lead at the top of the standings, now making it almost a 300-point advantage over Nicholas Huben in P2. Philip Manar has the gap closed behind him, both by Eric Delfanta, now down to just 22 points, with Carecas and Walsingham starting to make that fight for P3 in the standings ever more interesting. And if you're hearing kind of all 20 points here and there, things like that sounds like a decent gap. Bear in mind these drivers have scored about 9,000 on average inside of that top 5. It's ludicrous how many points have been scored and how close these margins are between everybody. And the fact that that is evidenced entirely by the dynamic that we had over the course of a season in having so many different race winners. Who knows? maybe it'll all change in these final 3 rounds of the season. Maybe George Boothby will come alive at Imola and then continue that momentum to the end. But I have to say, if it's going to stay just as chaotic and as wonderful as it has done for the championship so far in these final few races, I am certainly all for it, and I cannot wait to see how it all goes. Valencia, as it turns out, was a pretty good pick for the 9th round of the season, so I thank all of you for all of your votes and possibly saving us from, I don't want to say a bad race, but maybe a different one. I still love Brands Hatch. I'm not stepping away from that, but I'll give you this one. And and apologies, it's not Valencia. My bad. Anyway, a fantastic evening of action here at the Pro Series, delivering the goods once again in fantastic top-tier action, as always. Thank you so much, everybody, for all of the support this evening. If you have enjoyed the action here on the Twitch channel, then do consider giving the channel a follow. Big thank you to all of those that helped us get over that milestone this evening as we start to try to get ourselves to the dizzying heights of 4,000 followers, perhaps even by the end of this season. Who knows? Maybe we can do it. If you have enjoyed, then do consider giving the channel a follow. If you do want to show a little bit of extra generosity to all of those that make it possible, you can also subscribe here on the Twitch channel. And big thank you for those that do that. It does all make a world of difference. And if you want to stay in tune with all of the incredible action and recap over the action from this evening and any of the past races, you can also head over to the YouTube channel as well, where we are also starting to accumulate ridiculous numbers over there as well. So big thank you for all the support on that. And yeah, give that a subscribe if you fancy catching up with any of the action that you have seen from this evening. If, though, watching the best of the best on LFM has given you a little bit of a buzz to maybe get involved in some sim racing action yourself, then never fear that you can. You can head over to the lowfuelmotorsport.com website, get yourself a license, get yourself signed up, work your way up through the ranks, and you can participate in series like this against some of the very best drivers, win some fantastic prizes, take part in the daily racing, endurance, Dura Cup, all sorts of fun goodness to get stuck into. And if ACC isn't quite your cup of tea, you can also head back to the OG that is Assetto Corsa 1, hosted and integrated into the LFM ranking system, and do some fantastic stuff over there. Such a variety to get stuck into as well. And if you fancy some voluntary off-roading, you can also take part in the WRC Club Championship in the world of low fuel motorsports. And if nothing else, you just made some friends in the chat this evening and fancy making a few more, you can also join our Discord server. You'll be welcomed in with open arms. A ridiculous number of you, approaching stupid numbers of 200,000 within the entirety of the LFM community, and you can make a great deal of friends over there. Talk all things good about the real and virtual racing worlds. Share pictures of your dogs, your cats, you name it, and just make some fantastic friends. It's a lovely place to be, and we'd love to have you all there as well. But thank you, everybody, so much for watching this crazy evening of action. We'll be heading to Imola for the 10th round of the season. Will we have a 10th different winner? Will George Boothby, the championship leader, finally take that #1 car to the #1 step on the podium? Or will the streak continue and the dynamic be as crazy as it has been for the rest of this championship? Who knows? One way or another, it is going to be fantastic. Do not miss it. I look forward to seeing all of you there for next week. So thank you, everybody, so much once again for all the support on the series. But for tonight, then, it's goodbye.